trying to argue that he'd got more people on his Twitter poll than one of the official polls, so therefore it was... But of course, it's not just about numbers. There's other mechanisms, but this particular poll is the biggie.
I genuinely believe that it's a really important moment in British politics. I think we are no longer at two parties, and I think what will be really interesting is, over the next few months, can Reform pull away from the Tories? Because otherwise you're going to have three with about 25%, and Labour could sneak in the back door if they don't do a deal or something. But anyway, all of that coming up.
And Brian Murphy from Georgia Mildred died at 92.
Upstairs or downstairs, was he?
He used to kill me, that guy, as a kid.
Did he?
Yeah, not literally, just made me laugh.
That's another story. You're going home to see my wife.
Jeremy Kyle is next after the news at 4.
Thank you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. Just gone 4 o'clock. It is Tuesday. We're live across the UK. Drive on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. And thank you to the legend that is Ian... what's his set? Collins. Back tomorrow afternoon from 1. The Housewife's Choice. Loads rammed into the show today. Where do we start? I keep saying this every day to Ryan. There's so many stories at the moment, and not always the biggest ones. We all know about the Starmer voice coach. We spent 3 hours in each other's company yesterday afternoon doing personal brush. We even made the Daily Express for me daring to tell somebody off who was actually complimenting the Prime Minister. We can continue with that story today because it turns out that his voice coach travelled to several different venues to see him and seemingly broke the rules left, right and centre. And for all the people who are saying, listen, doesn't matter, it's gone, was it a cover-up? It matters because that bunch of hypocrites that you call the Labour Party spent their entire time in opposition, and quite rightly, we thought at the time, slagging off the then government, Johnson's administration, saying you haven't followed the rules you made up. Well, it turns out Her Majesty's opposition, led by their leader, was none better than the Tories. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Jodie is in the house. Ryan is here, awaiting your voice calls. More voice notes, I suppose you have to call them on WhatsApp. 0344 499 1000. Big news when we finished the show last night. This came out, and this is I call it a seminal moment. The YouGov survey putting the latest opinion poll putting Nigel Farage's party on 25%. Reform leads in a UK opinion poll, and not just some normal everyday poll. One of the best, to be fair, it has to be said. Leads for the first time in its political history. Labour in second, the Tories in third. Does the juggernaut that is reform continue to grow? How fascinating will the next 4 years be? I've said it before and I say it again. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. I think two-party politics in this country is over. I think the British people are fed up. I think they're just done with the ups and the downs of the Labour Party and the Conservatives. And I think they hear the ideas of reform. I think they look at what's happening to their lives and what's going on in the world. We've talked about immigration. Today we'll talk more about crime. I mean, we've got the West Yorkshire Police Federation admitting that they spent £1 million last year on diversity, equality and inclusion. Thank God they don't have Trump in charge, because that'd be gone. Should we not be making sure that we arrest people on the streets for committing crimes? You can't go anywhere in London without having your pocket picked. You try saying that when you've had a cup of coffee, right? Should we not be doing what's right on the streets? Oh, no, it's all about hurty words. But my favourite story, ladies and gentlemen, for Tuesday, the 4th of February, is that asylum seekers and refugees, thank you to the Telegraph, this is astonishing, have been given taxpayer-funded PlayStations and DJ lessons by local councils who have spent millions to make our new arrivals feel better. Newcomers in hotels have been provided with games consoles, yoga classes, also being used by refugees and asylum seekers, driving lessons, tickets to football matches, and, as Ian Collins said, instruction in circus stills. £141 million in, they call it initiatives, on this crap since 2022. So wherever you're listening to Talk this afternoon, maybe you're up north, maybe you're down south, east, west, I don't care. Maybe you're on the way home, you started at 5. Maybe you're on the way back from the school run and you're stuck in a queue. Maybe you've just come from the supermarket and God, how expensive's that? Don't you worry. Go get a boat and come over here and we'll spend £141 million giving you a games console and teaching you how to be a clown. This country is on, I'm sorry for using this word, on its arse, and something needs to happen. And it's going to happen because the people have had enough. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. We will start. We mentioned that amazing article in the Telegraph. We'll start with a personal favourite, the assistant comment editor of the Telegraph, Poppy Coburn. Good afternoon. Welcome to Drive.
Good afternoon.
Oh, God, I can't do it. Yesterday, I managed to turn a 3-hour drive show literally into a Keir Starmer impression, so I might as well do it with you, because you're not allowed on if you don't. We did the voice coach story yesterday. Could you please give us an impression of Keir Starmer, the new man who could...
Oh, no.
Come on, Pops, you got it.
All right. Well, you're lucky, because I'm recovering from a cold, so my voice is a little bit nasal, so I'm already halfway there.
Okay.
I made a promise to the people of this country, and I swear to you that I will break it. How's that?
I think that's absolutely fine. I think 10 out of 10, that'll make the Express tomorrow. I mean, I'd just like to ask your opinion on this, esteemed journalist as you are. A lot of people are saying, oh, come on. Look, that was 4 years ago, but so much was made at the time of Johnson and Partygate and breaking the rules that this government set. And it seems today this story goes further. A fresh row. Leonie Mellinger, I think that's Mellinger is her name, visited Labour's London headquarters on Christmas Eve when the capital was under Tier 4 regulations. I don't know what that means. That was the very day that Starmer was going, Boris Johnson is a disgrace, and travelled everywhere and showed pictures. And you think to yourself, do these politicians have any idea what's going to happen? Because I remember watching, I said it yesterday, I remember watching the story about do you remember the curry and the beer night up somewhere in Durham when he went there and there was 35 people?
Big
and they went, oh, not the same as the Tories in Downing Street. Even worse, in my humble opinion. Thoughts, Pops?
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, the main thing is, how shameless do you have to be? Because you must surely know that you're going to be found out eventually by someone for doing this.
And the thing about Boris Johnson is, I don't like when people make a rule and then break it, particularly not if they're someone that's actually supposed to be leading the country. But Keir Starmer campaigned as Mr. Cleaner the Clean, squeaky clean, hope and change, we're going to reform everything. We're not like those corrupt, rotten old people who are running the country now. Why? Literally just for the sense of self-preservation, if nothing else. Why then do you think it's appropriate to get a lady to teach you how to speak less like you've got a cold all the time?
With a mask over your face.
Why would you do it?
It's just...
Why would you do it? Because the thing is, and I think you brought this up earlier, which is completely true, you can say, well, it was a long time ago. We all agree those regulations were a load of rubbish anyway. Loads of people break the rules. Well, first of all, people went to jail for it. People got massive fines for it. Yeah, it was years ago. That doesn't mean it's all right. We don't let people off if they steal something a couple of years ago, then get caught by the police. Or to be fair, we might nowadays, but we shouldn't let these people off. That's the point.
Couldn't agree more. And it's almost that I don't even know the West. It's such arrogance to believe that you are better. And when you talk about cleaning up politics, and when you do this whole big thing about big boys, this isn't jobs for the boy. I mean, in the space of 8 months, we've had freebie gate. We've screwed the pensioners. We've screwed the farmers. We've done absolutely zilch to deal with immigrants. Today, I mean, the story that you guys... I mean, let's just go to this. I mean, this is beyond... madness. The Telegraph reporting that asylum seekers and refugees have been given since 2022 £141 million worth of extra initiatives to make them feel at home. This includes games consoles, yes, you're hearing me right if you're tuning in, yoga classes, football tickets, circus skill instruction. I mean, we're laughing. If I was sat up north and I'd started down the pit at 5 o'clock this morning and I was having my tea knowing I couldn't afford to pay my gas bill, I'd be raging off my head right now because it's an absolute disgraceful joke to the average British hard-working person, isn't it?
Yeah, and absolutely. Angela Rayner's been talking today about how she's going to have to raise the council tax threshold. She's going to let councils charge you more for not bringing your bins in and not keeping the streets clean. So councils across the country are apparently all going bust. And you're telling me there's £141 million just lying around in their back pocket to spend on things like video games consoles and Pilates classes. I mean, I know we shouldn't laugh, but that is a serious amount of money. It goes without saying. We forget when we talk about these government sums, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Well, where does that money actually come from? It comes from us. It comes from the very small group of people in the country who are still paying tax. And actually, yeah, every little bit does help. So why are we spending it on something that has no real benefit for a policy? First of all, everyone in the country basically wants immigration reduced. Hasn't. It's gone up, tripled, quadrupled under the last couple of years. And we're now spending money to deal with the consequences of a policy that nobody voted for. I mean, how is this democracy? This is just ridiculous. It's insane.
It can't be democracy. And you think back, I'm sure you were the same, that first weekend that Trump was in power, and I saw that graphic image of those Mexican drug cartel workers, before somebody tells me they're, disadvantaged people who have got anxiety, literally chained and manacled into that plane, right? Everybody going, oh, my God, all the lefties in America, this is such an appalling look. No, it's not. If you can't look... I don't have a problem, you see, Poppy, if we were flush and if we were able to say to the people in this country, your lives are OK, but they're not. And there are plenty of people, and I'll say it every day until they drag me out of this studio, there are plenty of people who have never had a handout, never broken the law, never not paid their tax, never done anything other than go to work and be a good parent and a good citizen, who right now are probably 8th in the queue. They're not racist, they're not homophobic, they're not whatever else they get labelled. They're just hard-working, decent people who think, why do I bother playing the game? Because I'm being treated like an idiot by the system. Genuinely believe that.
That is exactly it. It feels like you're being mugged off for doing the right thing. It should be surprised that so many people now go, well, I may as well be on the take as well. Because otherwise I just look like an idiot, Otherwise I'm clearly being taken advantage of. Again, this comes down to the fact that this is taxpayer money. Yeah. It is money that we are working for. When you go into the office, when you go and do the job that you're doing every morning, and you're sitting in traffic in your morning commute, this is where your money is going towards. I mean, it's just extortionate.
I mean, I sort of fail. I mean, we'll talk about crime in a minute, but I mean, explain to me, Angela Rayner, because you're an esteemed journalist, I'm just an idiot, because I don't get this. Angela Rayner is planning to create a council on Islamophobia. is lining up that wet Dominic Grieve to lead it. The 16-strong council will help advise on drawing up an official government definition for anti-Muslim discrimination and will provide advice to ministers on tackling Islamophobia. Really? Another quango, another committee, another ideology. Could we not get on with dealing with pickpockets in our major cities? Or could we not get on with dealing with people being mugged and not able to see a policeman or woman? No?
And this even has more worrying implications, because if you talk to anyone who's worked in the security services, who's been in the Home Office for a very long time, they will say there's a difference between people who just want to be nasty for no good reason, people hiding behind phobia, Islamophobia, as a way to basically cover up some really quite serious anti-British organisational work. It's very dangerous. There's a reason why we haven't adopted Islamophobia before as an official definition, because it could actually interfere with the work that the police are doing. So not only is this a waste of everyone's time and money, it's also potentially going to be affecting our national security. So, you know, to say this now...
Look, I'm reasonably intelligent, but even I want to run to 10 Downing Street and say to that pillock, do you understand? You are big. I was talking to somebody earlier today. I think he's a busted flush. I don't care what anybody tells me about a big majority. I think if this carries on, I think the minute you become a laughingstock, it then pushes out, and very soon those Labour MPs will start getting emails. I don't know. I mean, he's just, for me... I mean, and today, of course, the news that many of us welcomed, reform. Last night, a YouGov poll, not some bit part poll. This is one of, it's the dog's bits, isn't it, this poll, putting reform on 25%. Nigel Farage's party, Poppy, leading in an official opinion poll for the first time in political history. Do you, like I think, this is really the end of the two-party system? Because I think reform's going nowhere. Genuinely, I do.
I completely agree with you. I mean, what's interesting is that Keir Starmer seems to have basically done a speeded up version of the last 14 years of Tory governance.
Yeah.
You know, he has about 2 days of a honeymoon period. There's lots of jostling inside the party. They've already run out of talent, even though they haven't actually shuffled anyone, which tells you a lot about the original talent. And they've now got all these personal scandals in the news. I mean, if this is what's happened in under a year, what do you expect it's going to be like by the time the next general election comes around?
Do you think the Labour Party, which is famous for not actually changing their leaders, I mean, like the Tories changed, like they changed their underwear. It was about 5 of them, wasn't there, in about a week. But how long will it be until the powers that be in the Labour Party go, we are on a hiding to nothing here unless we change our leader? To whom? Angela Rayner? Ed Miliband? David, let's give away another piece of our sovereignty, Lammy? I mean, to me, it's become almost farcical in 9 short months.
I think they're going to try and replace the leader. I would bet money on this, and I hope you believe my predictions after the ones I did for Trump.
Yes.
That will magically manage to come true. If Keir Starmer is still Labour leader in the next couple of years, I would eat my hat. Not that I'm wearing one. I absolutely do not believe he's going to make it. But you're right. Who is the successor? I honestly think it would be Ed Miliband. And, I can't think of anything worse than Ed Miliband becoming Prime Minister. Then the lights really will be going out in Britain, quite literally. I just don't see him existing. Could
not agree with you anymore. I can't believe that it's like cozying up to the EU, right? I want to reset my relations with the EU. No, listen, mate. 52% of this country voted to leave. And whatever you think about that, you and your ideological mates in Islington, that's not going to cause you anything but pain. I think he gives the impression of not really giving a damn about what we think, Poppy. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't think he likes politics, which is ironic given the job that he's got. I genuinely don't think he understands how politics works. I think he thinks that what it is about is you sign a treaty, you sign a contract like a lawyer, and then everything just goes hunky-dory as you planned. But that is not the reality of the world. Things change. You don't get to dictate how the world is going to go by being nice to people and asking them for things. That's pretty basic common sense. Even a child could understand that.
Common sense.
Apparently not Keir Starmer.
Donald Trump and Talk Radio's mantra. Poppy Coburn, I love the impression. We love having you on. It's a weekly thing. It must be. Thank you so much indeed. Deputy Content Editor at The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn. What is it, 4:18? We're live across the UK. 0344 419 1000. I've got voice notes. Lorna, go!
When I look at the Labour Party and its leaders, I think to myself, I've seen more intelligent things lying on the bottom of ponds. Anyway, I'm hopefully leaving the country very soon, and I'm planning to take my tax with me. What have we come to? Thank goodness we've got you at talkTV showing us what's going on. And don't get me going on migrants. I'd look after anybody, but this is just taking the Michael.
Speaks for many people. Lorna, 0344 499 1000. Patrick on Starmer, go.
Can somebody tell this idiot of a Prime Minister that we are out of Europe, and what the hell is he doing? He's going to host an event between the UK and the EU summit, and it's going to be in Britain. We're not in the EU, Keir, you idiots.
It's all happening here. Let's go to a new caller. Brilliant. It's raining calls and emails. Hertfordshire, Jackie, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening. How are you?
Oh, not too bad, thank you. Yeah, I've been listening to the show most of the day, and it to be honest, it's depressed me so much.
Brilliant.
My grandson has gone to New Zealand. He went for a year, but he's staying a bit longer. I would rather I never see him again in my lifetime than he come back to this country.
Oh, bless you. It's broken, isn't it?
It gets worse. It's so depressing. I fear for my grandchildren, all of them.
It's really interesting, and I hope you don't mind me just going to delve into this a little bit, because, I mean, I think you're right. I've got 2 young kids, and for the first time, I think, in my life, I've started to question the sort of country, the sort of world that they live in. I mean, people can tell me I'm mad and my opinion's wrong. When I hear Trump talking confidently and positively and sometimes unpopularly about things that will make Americans' lives better, I crave that sort of leader. But I look, and thank God my dad's not here, I look at what we've become when we're more interested in dealing with what people say or what... I mean, did you see that story today? £141 million spent on migrants getting games consoles so they won't be too bored when they get here.
That tipped me over the edge, I think. You know, it's just so... honestly, I just can't believe this country. In fact, I won't be sorry if I was to drop dead tomorrow. Honestly, I wouldn't.
Well, I would have only got 4 views. I would have only got 4 listeners and I'd have 3. I will make you feel slightly better. My brother lives in New Zealand, and that's got to be one of the most boring countries in the world. So listen, your grandson will come back. But I promise you, there is one reason why we have to keep doing this show, and we have to keep believing and talk. We'll talk about common sense till the cows come home. Because this madness, it can't continue, and it won't continue. It might take a few years. But trust me, Jack, trust me when I tell you, he's not going to last, this idiot. This ideological rubbish is going to go as soon as... well, as quickly as possible in my mind. We really appreciate you coming on, though, sweetheart. Thank you. What a lovely lady. Jackie, new caller in Hertfordshire. Do you want to be on? 0344 499 1000. It's Talk Drive. It's Tuesday afternoon on the day that we discovered that councils across the country spent £141 million saying to asylum seekers who have arrived in this country and been put in a hotel and have seen a private doctor. You must be bored. Would you like a games console, a yoga or Pilates class? Perhaps you'd like to go to the London Stadium, watch West Ham play, because you must be having a hard time. I'm going to self-combobulate soon. It's Drive.
they've got a lot more power to take on Donald Trump. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I don't think China are going to back down. That's the one thing that you know from them, is that they are pretty sure with all of the minerals, as you've said, which make all of the chips and solar technology
and mobile phones.
Yeah, so everything.
So none of the stuff we use.
No, everything we take for granted they've got. And so they'll just sit there and go, OK, fine, we're going to impose these rules on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
At 4:25, Tuesday afternoon, you're welcome to Talk Drive. Talk, of course, the home of free speech and common sense. The moderate mainstream to nick a phrase off the legends is next. We say a very good afternoon to a man fresh back from holiday, a QPR supporter with his tail between... Well, no, your tail's up, Peter Blexley.
We've lost the 2 last games, but I've got my Dr. Martens on as I sit in your studio today, because tonight we've got Blackburn at home. Come on, you ours.
Oh, are you going?
Of course.
So you've flown in from a very exotic location with Mrs. B.
At 5 a.m. this morning.
You've done all of this and then you're off to the football. You have some life. I've changed your life, haven't I, really?
Oh, hugely.
Do you... I mean, let's make it police-based to start, and then I'll give you, as a common sense merchant, everything else. Apparently, a policy exchange group has decided that every demographic group wants the police to be tougher on crime.
Yep.
Now, at the risk of me, you know, sounding like I'm being a bit pious... Isn't that, Peter Blexley, what police are supposed to do?
And I'll put a little bit of flesh on those bones, if I may. The crimes that were asked about in this survey, that the public, uniformly, from all demographics, all age ranges, all social strata, those who were polled want the police to be tough on murder, no surprise there, serious crime, sexual assaults, rape, that kind of thing. They're with us, they're with you, they're with me, they're with every other right-minded thinking person. Can the police do some proper policing? Now, some of those crimes the police do rather well. Murders, albeit the unsolved murder rate is creeping up, let me make you aware of that. But they don't want online insults being investigated by the police.
You'll go to jail.
You know that. That is not what the public want. The public want good detective work, good police work, and it's really not rocket science.
Police are increasingly giving the impression, be it their bosses, and I do feel sorry for a lot of the men and women on the street. Let's make that point. However, because they don't make the rules. But I do begin to feel increasingly concerned that police are seen as prioritising online hate. You know, hurty words, we said it before, you can go to jail for saying something that might be inappropriate for 15 months, but apparently, you know, you can rape a child and there'll be no inquiry, and it'll take years and years because the police don't want to upset certain sections of our community. I think you said when we were talking off air, and I picked it out and I'll use it again, moderate mainstream people. I was talking to Poppy Coburn just then. Hard-working, law-abiding, decent taxpayer, never committed a crime, never had a handout, are at the end of their tether. And this police example is another one. Deal with criminals, for Christ's sake. Stop making excuses for them.
Stop creating huge diversity, equality and inclusion departments that hoover up millions of pounds of taxpayer money and don't create one sprocket, sell one thing or do anything that is actually meaningful and isn't covered by common sense anyway.
Were you abroad when Trump did his inauguration speech?
I watched it.
I mean, it's, you know, there are two sexes, and I'm done with. It should not be based on your skin colour. It should be based on merit. And I'm going to get rid of anybody. I mean, we had a story today. West Yorkshire Police has disclosed the true cost of its spending on diversity, equality and inclusion staff. The force has allocated over £1 million, ladies and gentlemen, to diversity and ambassador roles, emphasising its commitment to build a workforce that reflects the diverse communities it serves, but, in brackets, doesn't actually deal with cracking down on crime.
Work, salad, balderdash. Actually, you know, they use 1,000 words to say nothing. And on that unit, they've got a temporary inspector, OK, full salary, plus the other costs which are factored in of employing someone, a sergeant, 6 PCs on this unit, which is just, and they say we're committed to making a diverse environment for visitors to West Yorkshire. So if you happen to want to go and discover where Wuthering Heights was written and inspired by, I'm sure as you drive up there for a weekend with the missus, you're going to say, oh, we're going into West Yorkshire Police now.
Oh, it's going to be good here.
Do you think this is diverse and it's equal? Do you?
I've got a statement from us. The 4th largest police force in England, West Yorkshire Police, is committed to building a workforce which is representative of the diverse communities it serves and investing in resources that deliver better outcomes. Diversity, equality and inclusion is at the heart of West Yorkshire Police and Crime's plans, developed jointly between the West Yorkshire Police and the West Yorkshire... Prioritising DEI and policing is essential, Peter Blexley, to building trust and confidence and improving public safety. So you tried telling that to a dear old lady who's been mugged or has had a, you know, or a shopkeeper who's had his worldly belongings nicked and the police don't turn up. Apparently, if you spend £1 million on diversity, equality, inclusion, that makes it safer for people. What a load of old...
I refer you to my previous answer, Your Honour. Work, salad, balderdash. It's got nothing to do with policing, patrolling the streets, preventing crime, investigating crime when it happens, finding perpetrators, slapping the handcuffs on, getting the back of the van about, oh, mind your head, right? So,
oh, no, sorry. No, I've grazed my arm. I'm sorry, I'm feeling anxious and I'm going to sue you, you miserable man. You've ruined my life. And I'd probably win, wouldn't I? In the world we live in. I'd probably get you suspended because I've grazed my arm because you were too rough with me when you put me in the back of the van. True?
You mentioned President Trump first during this piece of us together.
Yeah.
The moderate mainstream, of whom I'm a huge fan, of whom my friendship group is made up of people who are moderate and mainstream and pay taxes and raise great kids and work very hard and contribute to society, and would probably in 2017 never have dreamt of showing support for President Trump when he was first elected. Now, just a few short years later, they're looking across the pond, the Atlantic, and they're thinking, do you know what? He's really got a point.
Yes, he has, because he's actually not afraid to say what everybody else is feeling and isn't worried about whatever kickback he gets, because he said, this is what I'm going to do if you elect me, and I'm going to do it from the first minute. And if you don't want me, don't elect me, but if you do, I'm damn well going to do it. And I spend every day hoping that one day there will be somebody like this. Maybe Farage is the man, I've no idea. But politicians of all parties need to understand. And it's really difficult when we do this every single day, because you don't want to give the wrong impression, Pete, but I believe something is happening in this country. I'm not talking about an uprising, I'm not trying to talk about conspiracy theories, but I think you've nailed it there. I think people that would never have thought the way that other people think are suddenly going, I'm 8th in the queue. This is rubbish, man. Rubbish.
Increasingly, I'm meeting people who are saying, a lot of them from the uniformed services and other people in law enforcement and such like, and they have to say it very quietly and not publicly, and they can't ever have a selfie taken with me because they would be drummed out of their job within the blink of an eye. But they say thank you, and they thank you to the broadcasters on this station and other outlets who are talking sense.
Common sense.
Who are common sense, of which, of course, this is the proud station of that.
Yeah.
That's what they want. And there will be, I'm sure, a huge groundswell growing in the coming years. But what we need is a statesman-like nation builder.
Yeah, great.
Someone who can build a nation.
And be proud of this nation instead of making apologies, and actually stick up for victims, not perpetrators of crime. And actually, I said this to you, I said it to somebody the other day, you were away, and I said, this guy rang and he went, just imagine your Prime Minister or your President standing up as Trump did and said, I'm going to make your country more prosperous, I'm going to make it better for your life. I'm going to make it safer. I'm going to let the world stop taking the mickey out of us, and I'm going to make you proud. Why the hell wouldn't you give somebody a shot at that? Pickpocketing. I need to talk to you about this as well. Hotspots across London's train stations, tube stations have been released. I mean, we're saying 90% of people are being pickpocketed all over the place. Literally, can the police do anything about that, or are they too busy dealing with something else? What's going on?
The top 20 railway stations for pickpocketing
in London, by the way,
in the UK are all in London. Surprise, surprise.
Well done, Sadiq. You've done a great job.
Oh, I put out a tweet not so many weeks ago.
Did
just
you
before
upset
I went
anybody?
On holiday,
Yes.
And I was saying I was going out to the theatre for the evening with my wife, and we'll be hand in hand, carefree, walking through the streets of London.
No.
I said, no, we'll have our head on swivels, making sure that we do not become victims of crime in Sadiq Khan's increasingly lawless London. Words to that advice. Well, the lefty lovies and the Khan lovers picked on it, and I had a tirade of abuse.
Did you?
All of which was utterly hysterical.
Did it upset you? Did it affect you? Did you get anxiety?
Deeply.
Did you not go to the theatre? Are you suing? Yeah?
Deeply. I've been seeing people over it.
Have you?
And so I retweeted that table, which came as a brilliant piece of work by Talk. I'll let you know. I retweeted that, and they've got their knickers in a twist once again.
Of course they are.
There you go. It's facts. It's lawless London.
It is
That's
true.
what Khan's built for us. We need something
Before
done
you
about
go,
it.
the #1 news story on Jeremy Kow's Drive Time today will be this in the Telegraph, that asylum seekers and refugees have been given tax-funded, payer-funded PlayStations and DJ lessons by councils. We have spent, since 2022, Peter Blacksley, £141 million saying to people who are coming over in boats, do you know what? It must be boring. Here's a games console, here's a yoga class or a Pilates class. Would you like to go to a Premiership football match? And what about earning some circus skills? Before I hyperventilate, you're a man of my era. What the hell are you supposed to think about that madness?
I'm working very hard each and every day, sometimes when I'm on holiday as well, to earn enough money so that in my later years, when my wife finally retires, I can go to Pilates lessons.
Yes.
I can go to football matches.
Yes.
Because that should be the reward of hard work.
Yes.
Where are these people putting in the hard yards to earn these things? That's what I would like to know.
Completely with you, pal. And you don't have to. Nowadays, we have a country where it's OK. You can arrive. I don't have a problem if you bring something, but you're going to arrive to a country because apparently you don't like where you've come from, and you're going to end up better off than the people who are here, living by the law and paying their taxes. The world's gone mad. QPR got who tonight?
Blackburn Rovers.
Good for you. Is Mrs B going?
Oh, most definitely not. I took her to a game in Thailand, so it's filled her quota for the month.
He's a man, he's a legend. Peter Blacksley, thank you very much indeed. Good luck to Queen's Park Rangers tonight, 24 minutes to 5 o'clock. This is Jeremy Kyle on Drive. Talk, of course, the home of free speech and common sense. You want to be part of this vain attempt? 0344 499 1000. You text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. We're coming back in 3 because I'm off for a wee. Ta.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Wake up, the best breakfast show in the land by Mary Marr, the king of common sense. Mike Graham back tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, with Morning Glory. Up and at it. Right, 20 minutes to 5 o'clock. Thank you for your text messages. 0344 499 1000 on the phones and 8722. Start your message with the word talk. Bill in Romsey says, if Starmer said he received... This is interesting. Starmer said, if I received a fine... like Boris Johnson, I would resign. Bill in Romsey says, now surely it's time for the police to see if they've got a backbone and arrest our Prime Minister. Hello to Smudge in Swindon. Any council that's contributed to the 141 million quid that we're giving to migrants should not be allowed to increase our council tax bills this year. Fines to council members who are culpable in ripping us off. They should be fined and they should be losing their jobs. One fine or when loads of it. I don't know. Labour is in cahoots with immigrants and foreign countries' governments. They do not like the British worker of any class, and they're civil servants who don't earn anything for pushing the lefty doctrine. However, they are given too much money. 0344 499 1000. There's only one person, right, on a very particularly important political day that you need. The legend that is Harry Cole, political editor.
I live and breathe.
Now, before you start, I don't care that you're the political editor. You'll know, of course, the main story. The Sun covered it. Keir Starmer's voice coach travelled between COVID tears.
Indeed.
And we did the whole thing yesterday. Two-tier granny harmer, farmer cut. I can't even, it's all day. But my thing about the old voice coach yesterday was, how can you tell that if you've got a mask on, that somebody... But what a bad job this person did, because he still sounds ridiculous. Can you please do your Keir Starmer impression?
I find it very hard to do Keir Starmer.
No, you don't, Cole. Come on.
Matt Ford, the comedian, he said, if you ever want to make yourself sound like Keir Starmer, you've got to find Starmer words. There are some words that Keir Starmer can't really say.
Like what?
The Metropolitan Police. And as soon as you say the Metropolitan Police, it's very nasal, but it's also very toothy.
Over the weekend, Morgan McSweeney, who's now the chief of staff, who managed to shaft Sue Gray, clever boy. He wrote a book that's come out at some point ago, or made a comment in a book that said, Starmer is no leader, he's an HR officer.
There's a great line in that. There's a book out by Times colleagues, Patrick Maguire, Gabriel Pogrund, Get In, which says, they said that Keir Starmer thinks he's driving the train, but we've got him sitting on the DLR. So which, I mean, these are his friends. These are the people that support him and back him. It's whether is Starmer more of a sort of vessel that a sort of wing of the Labour Party have sort of used to sort of. Was he
the AI figure that got them elected, and then all the real socialist crap came in? Because it's frightening to me.
I think, to be fair, that if you look at some of the people behind Starmer, they're much more to the right of the Labour Party as you realise. And they did spend, the first 2 years of the Starmer project was about shooting communists in the car park. So, they got rid of Corbyn. They got rid of him. One of the first things they did when they came into government was get rid of 6 or 8 of them, is it? The furthest left MPs, gone. So, careful what you wish for.
Reform, massively important opinion poll out late last night, a YouGov opinion poll, not just an everyday one. This is the Rolls Royce, putting Nigel Farage's party on 25% and ahead, 1 point ahead of Labour, 4 points ahead of the Conservatives. The first time in my lifetime that one of the two main political parties in any opinion poll hasn't been in the lead. Question to you to start with. Is this a seminal moment? Has the two-party system finished, and are reform now a serious option to be the next government in 4 years' time?
I mean, look, they've got a chance. We've talked about this before. That there is definitely a chance, and there's definitely, to quote Nigel Farage, there's something happening out there. The last time, there's only happened very briefly with the Brexit Party in the wake of the 2019 European elections, when
feels different to that.
Theresa May was around. It all went a bit crazy, and 6 months later, well, no, in fact, 4 months later, Boris Johnson won a massive, great stonking majority. No, it was 6 months later. What am I talking about? The SDP, obviously, in the you remember this? I wasn't alive, but the SDP, obviously, were doing very well in
Roy Jenkins
in Maggie's first term, and then then disappeared off the second term. Or
I'm going to say they second term, 80, 81, something like that.
All right, first term.
Yeah.
You were there, mate.
Thanks. Great. Humiliating. It's all right. I'm 60 this year.
Are you?
Yeah.
Like a day over Don't know.
Don't
I've
start.
seen you in makeup,
Don't start as Ozempic Boyer. I'll give it to you big time. Don't start on me.
I would advise you not to put that in writing.
It's totally unfair. But on a serious note, I think it feels different than Brexit. I feel like it feels like this is a proper party and a proper movement.
The Tories are in the toilet. We've been talking about that before. Labour came in pretty bizarrely, won this great big majority, but actually quite unpopular already. We've done nothing to really improve their popularity. Look, this could happen. There's a big backlash across the world against establishment parties, and it's a little bit like, they gave the Tories every benefit of the doubt. The public gave them 14 years, multiple chances to pull it back, and they didn't deliver. And then they literally got the other guy right, anyone but the Tories, and they promised to be different. They promised change, and actually it's a bit more of the same, isn't it? And so, you know what? You think, well, why not give this guy, why not give Nigel a second look?
And I think that's the point. I don't even think it's. I mean, there isn't much meat on the bone from reform. I'm being very, very honest. They'll say contracts and stuff like that. You almost look at it and go that the palpable mistrust of politicians that led after 14 years for them to go, do you know what? Let somebody else have a go. I mean, he's managed in 9 months to do what took the Tories 14 years.
Also,
let me ask, you know these things. I think he's a busted flush. I cannot see him getting it back with the British public ever. Can you?
Starmer?
Yeah.
Look, that majority, a majority of that scale and size can take a long time to unpick. Even if he loses 100 seats, he's still going to be the Prime Minister. He might not politically survive it within the Labour Party.
Did you think that Boris Johnson, 4 years after he had an 83-seat majority, would have been out on his ear? And I'm being serious.
No,
and they would have lost as they lost.
Didn't. And I think if they hadn't got rid of Boris Johnson, he probably would have still been the Prime Minister. But that is a debate for another day.
And me.
Yeah.
Look, and he had a bit of cake, but Starmer's the Prime Minister and he had a voice coach.
A voice coach, and what a good job the voice coach did. Tricky one, that. I mean, so Number 10 are currently sort of shutting down questions on this. They're saying, look, we don't want to talk about this. We're civil servants. We can't talk about something that happened when the now Prime Minister, for who we represent, was the leader of the opposition. Now, except tomorrow is Wednesdays, a good day in political journalism, because after PMQs we have a political sort of briefing for journalists where we can ask anything about anything, and they can't really hide from it. I have
to compliment your love child. Did you? He shot that question at Starmer yesterday in Brussels, Jack. So Starmer was just about to leave the lectune and he went, did you break put little Jack, just back from Barbados, did you break COVID rules by having your voice coach?
Brussels is a long way to go to watch the BBC and Sky and ITV not ask the obvious question that everyone wants to know the answer to. So Downing Street were a little bit upset to me when I suggested that the Prime Minister ran away from the questions, but he certainly beat a hasty retreat, didn't he? He was out the door quicker than a greyhound.
But you had him on your programme, you gave him every opportunity, you've done all of those sorts of things, they have to take it. Let's talk also about his desire today, I mean, again, massively unpopular, to push ahead with the Chagos Islands deal. I think Trump's going to play a major part in this. What do you make of this?
I cannot understand why we're doing this now. There's one non-binding ruling from the UN that says, maybe we should give the Chagos to the Mauritians, who, by the way, have never had a claim to it.
No.
And the people who were originally there before they built the airbase in Diego Garcia, lots of them are in Britain. They've never been asked, and they don't want to be Mauritians.
Why is he doing it? Is this madness?
It's his commitment.
£9 billion.
It's this sort of commitment to international law. It's a sort of there's not a sort of colonial lawsuit that he and lots of people around him, including the Attorney General, don't want to get on the bandwagon for. He spent his entire early career doing international legal niceties, when actually, you look at this, we're basically essentially trying to pay a country to take away part of our territory, which, as we ourselves say, is an incredibly vital national security asset. We're trying to basically rent it for 99 years at a cost of $9 billion, which the Mauritians are saying we've actually offered to double, so it could be up to $18 billion. Downing Street is saying wouldn't go that far, but they're not disputing the sort of ballpark figures. And you just think, what on earth are we doing?
£900 billion over 100 years to rent something that we own, that the Mauritians have never laid claim to, that's strategically massively important.
It's basically a US base. It is shared sovereignty with the US and the UK, but it's essentially a US-run base. Well, why aren't the Americans paying for it? So why are we basically saying, plucky little Britain, we'll pay £9 billion to these geezers that have never had any claim on this place in the first place anyway. We'll pay them to take it away so the Americans can fly their planes off it and, basically...
You nailed it. I have to move on, but you nailed it when you said he and his legal mates, they look at international laws and niceties and looking good as globalists and their ideology is important. My point is this. Back home, I don't care about a 180-seat majority because I suspect that a lot of those Labour MPs, when they start getting those thousands of letters in from their constituencies, whether it's
never
pensioners
been tested.
or never been tested.
The whiff of gunpowder.
I promise you, I think it's a disgrace on so many levels. Very quickly, and then we do have to go, asylum seekers being given £141 million worth of games consoles, Pilates and yoga classes and football matches.
Driving lessons, don't forget, driving lessons.
Just explain that
Think
to
about
me.
how many 17, 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-olds in this country who want to learn to drive but cannot because it's really, really expensive. As a man who learned to drive, I say, later in life, I was shocked by how expensive it was, and actually I would not have been able, I wouldn't have been afforded to have done that at 17, 18, 19, and it's just one of those things that just people can see and go, it's the same thing, it's queue jumping. It is queue jumping. Why do we have to scrimp and save and strive to do things that we'd want to do, like buy a PS5 or learn to drive, and then you could just walk off a boat, get up the beach, and have it handed to you on a golden platter with a red rosette.
Lovely man, we love having him on. The political editor of The Sun, Harry Cole, won't be at Cheltenham, he might be. 0344 499 1000, you would talk drive.
They've got a lot more power to take on Donald Trump. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I don't think China are going to back down. That's the one thing that you know from them, is that they are pretty sure with all of the minerals, as you've said, which make all of the chips and solar technology
and mobile phones.
Yeah, so
none of the stuff we use.
No, everything we take for granted they've got. And so they'll just sit there and go, OK, fine, we're going to impose these rules on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
To 5, you would talk. We're live across the UK. JK till 7, 0344 499 1000. Calls on the way. Your emails, your texts rather, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. A lot of people have been talking about Sir Keir Starmer's voice coach and how that broke lockdown rules and the hypocrisy. Let's take this seriously. Hello, Tracy. She says, my 22-month-old granddaughter died suddenly during lockdown and we couldn't, as a family, have the funeral she wanted or she deserved because of the rules. I am beyond furious with the hypocrite that is Sir Keir Starmer and his voice coach. I've got 3 Labour campaign leaflets through my door. Says so. One had a picture of the Queen on her own as Philip's funeral and one of a man alone at a graveside. The message in all of them was that Boris was partying, breaking the rules, whilst we were all suffering under those rules. That was one of the main campaign messages. Despicable. It is clear to me that Starmer broke the rules. He needs to resign. He is no better than all the people he has been saying do not deserve to be in power. We'll go to Hertfordshire. Another new caller. This station is gathering callers and listeners because, do you know why? We speak common sense. Justine, a very good afternoon. Welcome to Drive.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm all right. I'm really furious. My daughter was diagnosed with leukemia at the end of 23.
Yeah.
I had to shut down my business and claim benefits. It was degrading. And then we had to claim disability living allowance for her, which then took 14 weeks to come through.
I know what you're going to say. God.
And then we have to go through the whole treatment, and we're still having treatment, and we will be having treatment till December this year. And children who have cancer get to make a wish when they're feeling better or at the end of their treatment. And I had an email from the Dream Factory where my daughter has just placed her wish, crying out for funds, and have got a GoFundMe page because they don't get government help.
Listen, I have to be really careful that I don't say the wrong thing. In a past life, I worked with Make-A-Wish an awful lot. I know about those dreams and I know about those letters. It's a great foundation. My thoughts are with your daughter, and I hope very much that the treatment continues to work. Your point is not cheap. It's the reality. You have to wait 14 weeks for disability allowance. You have to go through every loophole and you just have to just have such a difficult time. And it seems that we live now in a country whereby yours is unfortunately a regular story. People who have played by the rules, as I've been saying all day, and at the first time that they need help, that actually the rest of us are happy for that help. For me, and I'm being straight with you, Justine, I'm really happy to pay my tax to pay for people in this country who cannot help themselves, who fall upon hard times, who've always grafted like you and your daughter. You had to shut down your business, but no, I don't care if people want to have a go at me, actually, because this isn't racist in any way. You can come in on a boat and I bet you get medical... Well, you get a doctor's appointment within 24 hours. So I'd like you to answer the people who say, yeah, but Jeremy Kyle, you're being really unfair. These people are escaping war-torn countries. They've got nothing. What would you say to that?
Go back home.
I wish you and your family the best, Justine, and I mean that, and thank you so much for sharing your call. If that doesn't wake us all up to the reality of what's going on, I don't know what will. Justine, a new caller from Hertfordshire, we appreciate it. We wish her family the best. In London is Fergus. You're on Talk Drive. Fergus, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm well, thanks. Oh, I love this programme, I must admit, the power of it. My thing is the weird Islamophobia thing that Angela Rayner's doing.
I'm going to be really honest. I've got 3 minutes to the news. I do not understand what it's about. She set up, I'm not even going to lie. Somebody phone me up and tell me about it. She's planning to create a council on Islamophobia and is lining up that dreadful wet Dominic Grieve to lead it. The 16-strong council will help advise on drawing up an official government definition for anti-Muslim discrimination and will provide advice to ministers on tackling Islamophobia. What does that mean?
Well, there isn't one about anti-Buddhism. There isn't one about anti-Hindu. There isn't one about anti-Jewish. There isn't one about anti-Christian. But for some reason, well, we know why. It's because the people who vote for Labour happen to be people like Sadiq Khan people. The people, they're very, very grouped together And she
Well,
wants their vote.
I would go further. I don't pretend to know anything about Islamophobia, and I mean that. If there is I don't like anything. I don't like anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. I don't think any of that's wrong, but I don't think it is right. But I don't think it's also wrong for people to stand up, like Justine, who just tells us the story about her daughter having leukemia and she can't get any help from this government, but other people can. And I'd like to say to all those lefties, speak to Justine in Hertfordshire and explain why we have a system that is favouring other people. What I would say about anything like that is we need leadership in this country to stand up and root out all unfairness and all difficulty. But unfortunately what happens is people fixate on certain cultures or certain races. There is massive, massive anti-Semitism, the length and breadth of this world right now, right? Nobody, you're right. We can't have we can't have a public inquiry into rape gangs in the north. Why? Because the police have admitted that might stoke cultural diverse arguments. Well, bugger that, you've broken the law. I think we get our priorities wrong, and I think the Labour Party is synonymous with setting up committees and quangos, and actually it's just a fudge pot. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't. How does that help anybody anyway?
Totally agree with every word you've just said. Thank you.
Spread the word about Talk to your friends. It's the home of common sense. Thank you very much indeed, Fergus. I've got a cinnamon bun, which I'm going to enjoy during the news at 5. You lot can, I don't know, go for a wee, make a cup of tea and get your brains in gear. What do you want to talk about? Starmer's forest coach didn't work. He broke lockdown rules. Boris Johnson was forced out. What about him? Reform tops the UK opinion polls for the first ever time. But don't worry about playing by the rules anymore, by the way, because we found out today that local councils in our dear country have given asylum seekers over £141 million worth of Pilates lessons, yoga lessons, driving lessons and other stuff like that because it's difficult, and PlayStations, when they come to this country. So there you are. Get my vote and come in. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. We're live across the UK and the news on this station is next to 5.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, Hour 2, Tuesday's Drive on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. We're live across the UK. You want to be on? As ever, three ways. 0344 499 1000. You can ring that to our Jodie, who's here. You can send a voice note to Ryan, who gets a bit of an ego trip if you do so. I love voice notes. Do it on WhatsApp, apparently. That's what it says here. 0344 499 1000. You can text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. What do you want to talk about? The fact that Keir Starmer, that pious idiot who was responsible at the time, quite rightly, for saying, Boris Johnson, you broke the rules, you need to step down. Turns out his voice coach, who blatantly did a crap job, right, was following him all over the United Kingdom, right, at Christmas, and was breaking the rules. Should he not resign? Reform leads in a YouGov poll. This isn't just any old poll. This is the Rolls-Royce of polls. For the first time in, well, I think since the Social Democrats, maybe in the early 80s, a third party has a real chance of making a major splash politically. But, of course, the big shocking news of the day, the Daily Telegraph reporting... Oh, God, it sends me over the edge. Councils have spent £141 million since 2022 on initiatives to make sure asylum seekers feel at home. These include games consoles, yes, yoga and Pilates lessons, tickets to football matches and driving lessons, because it's really hard when you get here and you get into a four-star hotel and you see a doctor within 24 hours. The world's gone mad. Hello to Anne Seale. She says, JK, I had breast surgery for cancer during the period Stalin broke the lockdown rules, and I was alone and terrified. What a hypocrite. I'm beyond angry. Good evening to Peter in Halifax. I think this PM knows he's in deep trouble and he's just trying to make sure the next government can't get ahead. What? Can't get ahead for years. Bruce says, please remind me how much the winter heating allowance was and then how much a PlayStation is. Couldn't agree more. Jez, Matt Hancock should have said he was having voice coaching when he was caught with his mistress. Well, something was happening with his throat. Never mind, I'm not going there, OK? I'm not like that, Martin. I am boiling with rage, Jez. That Starmer is doubling 9 billion to the Chagos Islands, to Mauritius, and we're skint. The man's gone mad. Loads of you wanting to do it. We'll do more. Hello to Sean, by the way. Thank you very much indeed. 83722. Start your message with the word talk. Now, every now and again, they say to me, we're going to try a new voice. In a minute, the ex-deputy leader of the House of Commons, former Tory MP for the Ribble Valley, he's called Nigel, but I'm going to speak to another Nigel, a new caller from Buckinghamshire first. Nige, you're on Talk Drive. Good afternoon. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon, Jeremy. I must say, a fantastic show you do. I wish all shows were like yours.
Have we paid you to say that?
No, we haven't at all.
Right, you can't come on unless you can do a Keir Starmer impression. Come on, do it.
Oh, my God.
Come on.
I haven't had any voice training. I can't do it.
You just do like, hello, welcome to Talk Drive. Yes, absolutely. Right, Nige, what you got?
Yeah, what I'd like to say is I'm absolutely fuming with all this money going to migrants. My mum is in a care home in Derbyshire, which they're closing. I've emailed Starmer, I've written to Starmer at number 10 and at the Checkers. He hasn't even had the courtesy to reply back.
Of course he won't. Of course he won't.
And yeah, they're closing the care home. My mum's 96 years old. They're going to rehouse her somewhere. I don't know where. No one's given me any information at all. The Labour MP is a John Whitby. I've emailed him several times. No response whatsoever.
Great job he's doing. Pal, it seems to me, and I'd be delighted to speak to Nigel Evans about this in a minute, that the priorities of this government are fundamentally wrong. And it is beyond doubt, I think, Nige, that there is a swell of opinion in this country, and I'm talking about moderate mainstream people who are now prepared to stand up and say enough is enough. We wish you and your mother the best. Thank you. As I mentioned, he wasn't the deputy leader. Jesus, I gave him a right build-up. Former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, Nigel Evans. Hello, old boy. How are you?
I'm superb. Thanks, Jeremy. And it's great to see you, and you're looking so well.
Well, I'm 60 this year, Nige. I'm 60 this year. Come on, tell me I don't look it.
You don't look it. Absolutely not, no. I'm 67, so I've got a big head start on you, Jeremy.
Well, you definitely don't look 67, but there we are. Now, listen. The one thing that we have to be honest about, and we can talk everything to do with Starmer, but I have to start, and I do this with all 171 of you that lost your seats. You do realise that the appalling performance of the Tory party in the last few years, right, with all that went on, is the people of this country, like it or not, Nige, they blame you lot for allowing this appalling, disgusting government to be in power. You know that, don't you?
I do know that. And in fact, I bumped into Nigel Farage a week after the general election. We were in a TV studio and I said, Nigel, you cost me my seat. And he was just about to defend himself. And I said, don't bother, Nigel, because I didn't blame anybody who voted Reform or who stayed at home or had a protest vote in voting Labour or Lib Dem. I fully appreciate my seat was one of the safest seats in the country. It's for the first time ever, it has a Labour member of Parliament. And so I fully take responsibility that my government let the people down. We deserved a kicking. And it's really sad. One of my constituents said to me during the general election, he said, Nigel, I'm going to vote for you. I don't want to vote for your party, but I am going to vote for you. And what's going to happen is that your party will lose. We will have a Labour government, and I'm going to end up spending thousands more in taxes, including my council tax, and you lot are to blame. He was really angry. And this was within probably a week of the general election. And I thought he best sums up how I feel. We did let the people down badly.
Really appreciate your honesty, Nigel. Great to have you on. So much to talk about. Just as an overview, as we haven't had you on the show before, are you as surprised as we are? I am, certainly. I mean, in 8.5 short months, this man has managed to cram in as many disasters as it took you lot 14 years. And we laugh, but this man is... I don't know whether he's... I can't work any of it out. He's attacked pensioners, the land grab of farmers.
I've just lost you, Jeremy.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh, right, OK, listen, get me a call up. We'll try and get Nigel back on. Can you get me a call up, Joe, or one of you? 0344 499 1000, that happens. Oh, listen, Jane, text, I can do that. When Boris ate cake, it was rolling news. Seems the cake correspondents seem quite quiet on the fact that Keir Starmer broke lockdown rules as well. I broke the rules, Christmas 2020, to see my dying daughter. I thought it was a good reason to try and improve your image, was not. My name is Roy. There's a lot of anger about Keir Starmer and what he did. Hello to Natasha. I think there are so many people feeling like Jackie. My children don't want to stay here. They see their futures outside the UK, as do my husband and I when we stopped working. We both served in the military, Jez, and we were proud and patriotic of Great Britain. This used to be a safe, stable country. I am no longer proud of it. I hate it. Let's go to Milton Keynes whilst we try and sort out Nigel Evans. Bob, you're on Talk Drive. A very good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Kay, and nice to talk to you. And I hope you enjoyed your cinnamon bun.
Well, I've got. I don't know. This is very, very boring. I'm going to show everybody who's watching on YouTube. I've saved the sticky middle bit for the last bit. There you are. There we go. That's very boring, isn't it? Right. What you got?
So I've been working in healthcare for 58 years. I'm still working, and I'm 76 years old. I've brought up 3 kids. They're law-abiding. We paid our taxes. We employ 18 people. Why have I now, at my evening of my life, think, why the hell did I bother? All that money, all that effort, why? And I've just said to my kids, why don't you just leave this country? I am so despondent about where we've got to.
I'm so glad you called. And I think, you know, even my wife said to me, you're really passionate about this, Vic said. And I said, I am, because I can't remember a time in my life where I felt as pessimistic as I felt. It's not even, actually, do you know what? It's not even the economics of pessimism. I just don't understand how we have allowed ourselves to get to a position where we're more interested in arresting people for saying hurty words than having an inquiry into kids of 8 being raped by groups of men. I don't understand that. I don't understand why today I read that £141 million has been spent buying driving lessons and PlayStations for asylum seekers who see a doctor and get a hotel when Beryl in Bury, who's worked all her life, can't get a hip replacement. She's right at the back of the queue. How did I end up here? That's my theory, Bob. I don't understand. It really annoys me.
I didn't do medicine for this. I didn't do medicine to go on strike. No. My wife is Jewish. She's frightened to go out. She won't admit she's Jewish because she's frightened of the backlash. It's not the country I know. It's not the English country I know and love. And to be honest with you, it's been ruined by these, and there's been decades of these inept idiots running the country.
What's the answer?
Well, I've told my kids to leave, and I'm too old to leave. I just got to look at the microcosm of my family and look after my family, enjoy them, and just plod through it. But this government is ruining everything I've tried to work for in my life.
Whilst I completely share your opinion, maybe I'm lucky to have this, but I genuinely will not in any way give up until this man is out of 10 Downing Street. And most of all, the ideological rubbish that spouts out of politicians' gobs. Oh, you know, what did Miliband say last week? Let's get some more, you know, let's get some wind farms. There's not enough wind, you idiot, and you'll have to import electricity from another country and we'll all be skint again. Bob, keep the faith, keep it talk, love to the family. He's in Milton Keynes. We are going to go 3, 2, 1. Nigel Evans, you're back.
Absolutely. Lovely to see you again.
Mate, let's talk about what he's managed to do. We were talking about what's happened to pensioners, farmers. Everything seems to have been an attack, and yet, whether it's cozying up to the EU, he doesn't seem to grasp, in my mind, the feeling on the ground in the United Kingdom right now.
No, I fully agree with you there. I mean, his voice and vocal cords should be the least of his worries. Normally, when a new Prime Minister takes over, just as we've got with the President of the United States, after 100 days, they have a big splash about all the things that they've achieved during the first 100 days. The first 100 days after Keir Starmer's Prime Ministership just passed. It was not celebrated at all. I tend to make the comparison of the Titanic, and even the Titanic didn't sink on launching. It was a few days into its journey. This government sank at launching. The first thing it did, of course, was the winter fuel payments, which it took off a vast majority of senior citizens. And they said that they've got this big black hole and that's why they couldn't afford it. And then after that, there has been a huge number of own goals, as I will call them, from, as you say, attacking the farmers and small businesses generally, through to telling the WASPy women that, yes, we said before the election we were going to support you, but now we're not. And yet, at the same time, it appears to me that the government has got, what, £18 billion that they want to give the Mauritians so that they can have the Chagos Islands. I mean,
that's my point. You're in Parliament a long time. Is it arrogance? Is it incompetence? Is it I don't care? I've got 5 years of my ideology? Because I said on day one when he cancelled the winter fuel allowance, that'll be his poll tax. They'll never. I don't care what people tell me. They will never trust Keir Starmer again. Pensioners. Neither will WASPy women. Neither will farmers. He said to the farmers before the election, "I will protect you." Is it that he's so up his own backside? Doesn't he care? Because genuinely out there in Great Britain, I haven't found anybody who says he's doing a good job. Well, one person yesterday, but I had to cut them off.
No, I don't think you're right to say I was in politics a long time. I was in Parliament for 32 years, and I've seen governments come and go during my period and indeed before that. I have never ever seen such a bad start to an administration as I have this particular Labour government. And it's not as if you tell people, watch out for the potholes, or watch out for this and watch out for that, watch out for the dog poo, don't step in it. It seems to me that they're looking for it to step in it, because one announcement after the other is hitting the very people who decided to give them a chance. And if you look at all the local government by-elections that we've had since the 4th of July, the current government have lost a ton of them, and 40% of those who voted Labour at the last election say they won't vote for them again. So, I mean, they are really flagging in the polls.
Well, let's talk about that, because you were very salient, and I had a message straight away. Jane Bates says, what an honest man Nigel Evans comes across as. Every day gets scary, and at least as a Tory he can admit their responsibility. Let's talk about yesterday evening. YouGov poll, the Rolls-Royce of polls, puts Nigel Farage's party Reform on 25%, 1% ahead of Labour on 24%, and 4% ahead of Kemi Badenoch's Conservative Party. Now, again, total honesty with me, Nigel. I was brought up in a Tory household by parents who taught me about, I say it every day, the viewers and listeners know, low taxation, a strong military, a fear of the police, not a fear of criminals, strong borders. And the fact of the matter is, why I voted Reform was that I hated the fact that most of your party, and certainly Labour, decided to class Nigel and his Reform friends as far right. They weren't far right. They're talking the language that I was brought up on. I don't believe that Reform are going anywhere. I think there is now 3 main parties in this country. What do you think?
I absolutely agree with you. And the vast majority of the policies that Reform have, I would think the vast majority of Conservatives would support. So I'm hoping that Kemi, in the period that she's given herself to start to embark on the policy hunt, is that she is going to come forward with true Conservative policies, the policies that got us elected under Margaret Thatcher. And if we only go back to basics on the main principles as to why I am a Conservative. I want to see low taxation. I want to see strong defence. I want to see more police on the beat. I want to see controlled immigration. I want to see us make Brexit a great success. All of these things is what should be at the very top of Kemi's agenda from now on.
You said you hope. Let me ask you a question. Is that you done in terms of standing, or will you consider it again? And if Kemi Badenoch hasn't come up with answers, would you consider voting or standing for Reform in the future? You say that Nigel speaks your language.
No, he does speak my language. And looking at the opinion polls, it's not just that one. He's been at the top of several opinion polls over the past few weeks. They've won a few local government by-elections themselves, and that's coming from a stop-start. These were seats that they never stood in before. And I also will say this too, Jeremy, is that we do not have the luxury of several months before the Conservative Party come forward with policies, because unless they come forward with them soon, then we've got a big test in May with the local elections where they are being held. And quite frankly, at this moment in time, I would expect Reform to be standing in all of these seats, and they're going to take a big chunk of those seats unless we can give people a positive reason to vote Conservative.
Well, I think this is really interesting because apart from, as we said at the beginning, the frustration and the anger still felt towards the Tories, and I think you're the first ex-Tory MP to get nice messages because of your, you're saying, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. But what's really interesting is I haven't heard jack from Kemi Badenoch. Everybody says to me in the Tory party, well, she's taking her time, she's taking her time. Fine. But on the other hand, 5 MPs from Reform have made more noise than the remaining 650 or whatever it is. And that is resonating with voters. It's resonating with the public. When they talked about the Manchester atrocity at the airport, where quite rightly the police officers were suspended, but it took 6 months for the Crown Prosecution Service to say to 2 Muslim men that was wrong because that might upset people. Reform was straight in the face with that. That is exactly what the British public want to hear. Axel Rudabicano, that revolting human being in Southport that was used. You heard Starmer and you heard Reform. Nigel stood up and said, this has terrorist connotations. Nothing from the Tories. To me, as a voter, all I'm hearing is Reform speaking my language, Nigel. I hear nothing from the Tory party.
Well, you would never think that there were 121 Conservative MPs and only 5 Reform MPs. I believe that some of the Tory MPs are simply not pulling their weight, and they need to pull their fingers out, because if they think that all they need to do is wait 4 years for the next general election and they will waltz back into the governance of this country, they can forget it, because the people they don't vote in the same way that they used to in the 1970s and 80s and 90s when it was two-party politics with the Lib Dems being the protest vote. That's all gone now. And I believe that unless we see some real action on behalf of the Conservatives, the 121, unless they start to make a proper noise and resonate back with the people, then they're going to find that the 121 they've got now would be a dream compared to how many they're going to get at the next election.
If Kemi Badenoch
gets going.
Nigel Evans, if Kemi Badenoch, the 121, I know you'll answer this because you're a good man, do not come out with enough, can you see yourself gravitating towards Reform?
I've got to say that I've been a Tory member for a party member for 50 years, Jeremy. It would take a lot for me to walk away from the party that I joined when I was 17 years of age. And I will do my level best working with Kemi to make sure that the Conservative 121 starts to make a presence, start to resonate with the people again. I'll give the warning one more time. Unless they start to resonate with the public, come forward with policies that the people actually want, then 121 will soon become 49 or 36. There is no God-given right for the Conservative Party to be the official opposition or the biggest party after the next general election.
Really good to have you on, and please, please, please come on again soon. Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, former Tory MP for over 30 years for Ribble Valley, one of the safest seats, absolutely destroyed at the election, and honest enough there. Lots of people will say, oh, honest, said we weren't good enough. Doing his best, understands and appreciates and understands the noise that reform under Nigel and Richard are making. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Deborah's in Essex. Jez, great show. The problem I have is Starmer and co obviously cannot run our country. Why can't the electorate get them out? Now we have a voice coach and Starmer breaking COVID rules and laws. They get away with everything. I'm sure if the voice coach was arrested, she would be very vocal. If she thought she would have a criminal record. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. It's 5:23 on Drive.
They've got a lot more power to take on Donald Trump. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I don't think China are going to back down. That's the one thing that you know from them, is that they are pretty sure with all of the minerals, as you've said, which make all of the chips and solar technology
and mobile phones.
Yeah, so everything.
So none of the stuff we use.
No, everything we take for granted they've got. And so they'll just sit there and go, OK, fine, we're going to impose these rules on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Loads of you texting 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Hello to Jane. Great to hear Nigel Evans just now. That is what is missing from Parliament. Honesty, experience and integrity. I like the fact that he faced up to what went wrong. Steve's in Cambridge. Nigel was good in the chair and very good in that interview. Let's get him back on. Danny, different view. He says it doesn't matter what the Conservatives do or what they say, the trust has gone and it will never come back. He's in Silsden, I hope I got that right, in West Yorkshire. Danny, thank you. Will, Greg. Tories are doomed because every argument they make to Labour is quickly quashed by Starmer and keeps bringing up their failures. I think the Tories are doomed because they haven't got anything bloody new to say, Will. John Reimer. The Tory party ex-politicians and the present politicians need to smell the coffee. They need to get behind reform, and the first ones that do will be remembered. Kemi has not performed. The Tory party has not performed. We have new initiatives, and it's called reform. Hello to Caroline. I'm a 53-year-old single woman living alone, working full-time and trying so hard to make ends meet, Jez, with no help. Like your earlier caller said, if I drop dead tomorrow, it doesn't worry me anymore, because life is so thoroughly depressing and hopeless in this country that I once felt proud of being. And that's Caroline in Norfolk, and that is not somebody who's just saying that. There's hundreds of people sending those messages to this station today saying, I feel hopeless. I feel hopeless because I've always lived by the rules. I've always done right. I paid my tax. I'm being treated like an 8th-class citizen, and it's not good enough. So for all those people who go, oh, listen to them spouting on talk, ooh, you listen, get your heads out your backsides and understand the reality of life. Let's go to Glasgow. Kenny, you're on Talk Drive. Good afternoon. How are you, pal?
Not too bad, Jeremy. How are you?
Not too bad. A proud... Well, I'm sort of half Scottish, so there you are. What's going on?
I've got a couple of points. First of all, I initially phoned up to speak about Lucy Letby. And within about 5 minutes of me making the call to you, I then had 4 youths going up my street that I live on with balaclavas on, pretending to stab each other. Who then made it up the street and onto the main street of this place. Now, I have many issues with a lot of things. I've got a few issues with the Lucy Letby case. If it is the case that we have had a miscarriage of justice, we have destroyed this young lady's life. This is going to cost the taxpayer millions because she will never be allowed to live in the UK again. We'll have to relocate her, which again will cost millions. These youths that I just spoke about that are cutting about the streets at the moment, I spent 16 years in the British Army fighting terrorism all over the world. I served in every major conflict zone all over the world that the British Army was served in during that period from the 90s to the early 2010s. And every single one of them had something to do with Islam. Now, that's a major issue to me.
There are, blimey, that's listen, that's a very, very detailed call. I'll answer both. The Lucy Letby thing fascinates me, worries me, concerns me, confuses me. On the one hand, I think somebody as eloquent and as switched on as David Davis wouldn't be involved. But, you know, it's not right for me to say, but I'll tell you one thing I do know. From today, this is a story that's not going away. There will be people who are absolutely convinced that she's guilty. There will be more and more who aren't. We will see what happens. If it is anything other than her and it tends to be, you know, and it ends up being something else, that is going to be very, very concerning. Your comments about Islam, you know, obviously we have a job to do. What I will say about this station, about this show is we'll never shy away from saying certain things. So, for example, the Rotherham gang, the police admitted it took them 8 years to bring 8 British, Muslim, Pakistani gentlemen to justice because they feared racial tension. They feared creating a stir. I will stand by for as long as I sit in this chair. I don't care the colour of your skin, your sexuality, what your grandmother did. If you break the law in my country, you should pay the crime's consequences. Kenny in Glasgow, thank you very much indeed. 87222, start your message with the word talk. Kemi has no aggression and purpose. She's not passionate, says... Mary, thank you, Mary. Right, next. God, there's so many. This is so busy, Ryan. I'm working hard here, man. He's just sitting there enjoying his life. David Spencer is the head of crime and justice at the Policy Exchange, a former Met Police inspector or even officer. How are you, David?
Good evening. Good to see you, Jeremy.
Oh, God, I'm having a busy... Honestly, the world's gone particularly mad. Let's talk from a police point of view. We were talking to Peter Blexley an hour ago. Shocking news today. The policy, every demographic group in this test, in this survey, every democratic group in this country wants the police to concentrate on solving crime, David. What an absolute shock that is, isn't it?
Well, I know it sounds pretty obvious. We polled 2,000 people as part of a major study that we at Policy Exchange have been doing, and we found that every single demographic group, every economic group, every supporters of every political party all say that they want the police to take a tougher approach to crime. So this isn't just sort of one group. It's not just older people. It's not just men.
Everybody. Everybody.
Older people, younger people, literally every group say the police need to take a tougher approach on crime. And what we're particularly seeing as well is that the way it breaks down by political party is really interesting over the last 5 years. And so, for example, what we saw is that tough on crime voters abandoned the Conservative Party in favour of both Reform and Labour over the last election. And also what we're seeing is that the Labour government, there is a real risk for them because there was 89 constituencies at the last election where Reform came second to Labour. And the Labour government has a real risk here that if they don't take a tough on crime approach, those 89 constituencies in particular, they're going to find themselves vulnerable to the Reform.
I mean, listen, great work. The reason I introduced it as it was, and I'm delighted you've done the work, David, I think it's very important. But please, God, that tells me this world has not gone completely mad. The whole idea, as I said to somebody earlier, when I was growing up, was that there was a fear of the police. And criminals were concerned because we had policemen and women, shock horror, on the street sharing intel and arresting people because they could see what's going on. We now live in a world where if you make hurty word comments, you can go to prison for 15 months. And I think you're really interesting to make that point because I think most people are fed up. Whether you run a shop, the police won't come if you have under 200 quid's worth of goods nicked. An old lady gets mugged or somebody has their watch. We don't see the police. They're not visible anymore, and yet they suddenly are if something ideological, you know, these hate crimes. I mean, I don't know. What was the survey like on that? What were people saying about, you know, prioritising online hate? They must have been as strong about that as about dealing with real crime on the streets, weren't they?
Yeah, it was very, very clear that when we asked people, what do you want the police to do? They focus on violent crime, sexual assaults, these sorts of things. They want to spend far less time, or they think that it's far less important dealing with online, as we call it, sort of hate crime or non-crime hate incidents. They absolutely want that. And what I would say is, you know, you said I'm a former police officer, and that's right, I was a police officer for a long time. And what I know is when I speak to police officers, they want to be dealing with violent crime. They want to be dealing with...
Then with respect, why aren't they in your mind? As an ex-police officer, why aren't they? Is it government? Is it ideology? Is it police bosses? What is causing the very people who are supposed to legislate for us and deal with these criminals from not doing what we feel they need to be doing?
Well, I think if we look at the last 10 years of government, we saw less police officers on the streets between sort of 2010, 2018. That's had a big effect on policing. We've seen a massive rollback in stop and search. So from about the last 10 years, we've seen stop and search rolled back significantly. And what's really interesting when you look at the data is as the number of stop and searches reduces, the amount of knife crime goes up. That's very, very clear.
And just stopping you there a sec, because I've done loads on this. That is because the bedwetters, as I call them, will say, oh, stop and search is a racist tool used by the police and you're stopping young black men. And there is proof, certainly in London, that 83% of the crime is committed against and by black men. So at the end of the day, why are we as a society getting to a point where we're pandering to that view rather than carrying out techniques that we know will make our streets safer?
Well, it's really interesting you mentioned that, because when we looked at the study that we've just done that I was talking about, we asked people the same sort of questions about how tough do you want the police to be, how satisfied are you with the police? And again, whether you're white, black, Asian, whatever your ethnicity, you tell us time and again you want the police to be tougher on crime.
Yeah.
So this isn't something where it's just white people want people to be tough on crime. It's across the board. Yeah. That's what we want. And what I would say to the government, particularly this government, is that you absolutely need to focus on being tougher on crime, because if you spend your time listening with respect to the ultra progressive activists either within your party or elsewhere, then you are going to be missing the point of what the vast majority of voters are looking for.
Really interesting. Also, there was a story today. I'd love your take on this, David, if you're OK. West Yorkshire Police has disclosed the true cost of its spending on diversity, equality and inclusion. They spent £1 million on diversity and ambassadorial roles, emphasising its commitment to building a workforce that reflects the diverse communities it serves. Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States, love him or loathe him, stood up the other day and said, and I quote, I'm going to be colour-blind and merit-based. Surely, this DEI stuff is also holding back the police in terms of dealing with crime on a daily basis.
Well, I'm genuinely astounded. I hadn't seen this story, but £1 million sounds like a lot of money to me. And it sounds like quite a number of police officers that could be out there on the streets.
There's a department. Peter Blexley was telling me there's an inspector and about 6 or 8 staff. It's £1 million to do something, to make sure, basically, that we're building a workforce that reflects the diverse communities it serves in West Yorkshire. What about putting those 8 policemen and women and £1 million worth of resources on the street to catch the burglars and the drug dealers and the rapists and the murderers? That doesn't make sense to me.
Certainly, well, I'm not sure I can help you make sense of it, Jeremy. Certainly, if I was the Police and Crime Commissioner for West Yorkshire, I'd be asking some questions as to whether those people are really deployed in the right place or whether there are other places that those people should be. And, they're the sort of questions we would expect elected government and police and crime commissioners to be asking. So,
I have to big up the Policy Exchange, because it's things like this that might seem blatantly obvious to people, but when you hear your facts that the majority of the UK, age, demographic, race, culture, creed, religion, whatever we're supposed to say, because the world will be wrong, right? Whatever pronoun you want to use. Most people in this country are fed up with crime and want the police to be stronger. That's the message, David, to sum up, isn't it?
I think that's right. And certainly what we're seeing in the work that we do is that people are pretty fed up of what they consider to be a permissive environment for crime, and that one of the things they want to see time and again, and is becoming more and more important, particularly when we've seen last week, the new results came out, a 12% increase in crime compared to this time last year, that people just they've had enough. They want a less permissive environment for crime.
Really appreciate you being on. Thank you, David Spencer, Head of Crime and Justice at the Policy Exchange. 20 minutes to 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. This is JK and Drive. What do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the fact that Reform are leading in the opinion polls? They are now the biggest party in the United Kingdom, if there was indeed a general election tomorrow. Perhaps you want to talk about Sir Keir Starmer, who broke lockdown rules with a voice coach, who obviously was crap at a job because that didn't work. Or perhaps, like me, you're absolutely raging to discover that councils in the United Kingdom since 2022 have spent 141 million quid of your tax money on asylum seekers, not making sure they're okay, because they've got a hotel and they've got a doctor. We're giving them PlayStations, we're giving them yoga classes and Pilates classes, we're teaching them to drive, and we're making sure they go to Premier League football matches, because it's bloody hard coming to this country when you've got nothing. It's quite bloody hard being here when you get Jack as well. 20 to 6.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back 18 minutes to 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. JK Till Kev 0344 499 1000. People are livid, raging about the fact the local councils are giving 141 million quid to asylum seekers to make sure they've got games consoles. What are they playing? Grand Theft Auto? Doug says investigations need to be undertaken on councils that are going bankrupt to see what they're spending their money on. Doug makes a really good point. This could be the tip of the iceberg. How many councils have gone skint? How many councils are increasing their council tax? What are we paying for? Bloody PlayStations for illegal migrants? Zoe's in Lancashire. Hello, Zoe. How about teaching these scroungers something useful, like maybe how to get a job and pay their way in this country? Hello to Andy in Ashton-under-Lyne. PlayStations and driving lessons now. Wow, Starmer and this government are beyond belief. I'm serious, beyond word, livid. How does this idiot sleep at night? Where's Streeting? Next in line. I don't know. I'm not really interested. John's in Hampshire. I agree with this government. I agree with you. This government is on its knees. Starmer is a disgrace. He punishes the people of Britain. Meanwhile, he gives everything to migrants. I paid a lot of tax in my lifetime, and this is not for the good of the people that I live with. It seems to be given to everybody else. Steve's in Cambridge. Poppy for Prime Minister. She knows more than you. Probably does. James, not to be antagonistic, but people have got the government they voted for, Jez. If people want change, they have to vote for it and leave it to somebody else. Very true. Hello to Gertie. Hi, Kyle. Hi, Kyle. All right, fair enough. I'm 62 in April. Your 60th birthday is also a day before my children, who will be 33. All right, don't make me feel worse. Jane Bates. What an honest man Nigel Evans comes across as. Every day, for me, gets scarier. And Richard's on the Costa del Sol. He says, do you know what, Jez? I couldn't be more glad I moved to Spain. The Spanish love their country. No way would I come back. Great show. Watch it on the telly every day. You just enjoy yourself with a beer there, Richard, on the Costa del Sol, you git. Let's go to the phone line. Southend-on-Sea. Tristan, welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
Hello, Jeremy. Sir, good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for phoning. What have you got?
Rightio. While everyone's discussing the asylum seekers being treated like royalty at this point in time, I'd like to point out how the Department for Work and Pensions and the government treats disabled people. Up until 3 months ago, I was working. I'm blind and have nighttime epilepsy when I'm asleep. So it was hard getting that job, but it was what it was. It was a summer job, unfortunately, and Southend being a seaside town, that's where we're at. So I spoke to the Department of Work and Pensions after I went back on disability benefits and said that I was giving some thought to going back to full-time work. The person I spoke to, I kid you not, turned around and said, if you ever say that to me again, I will change your premiums and you will be £98 a week worse off.
Oh, Jesus God, my life.
Yeah, so this, Jeremy, is where I need your help, please, sir.
Do you know, it is so obvious to me that people's priorities are wrong. Can I just say, whatever I say on this show, people will criticise, but Tristan, fair play. It doesn't matter that it was a summer job. I said to my kid the other day who's going to go and work in TK Maxx, I said, good on you, son, that's great. Anybody that has that ethic, whatever they earn, that's all we're asking for. Plus also, the very system that I signed up to 60 years ago, and I'm happy to pay into, by the way, is to help people who have paid their way and been part of our society, who have fallen on hard times. And you're blind, you've got epilepsy at night, you need some help, society should be helping you. And blatantly it doesn't. And that, for me, is why there is a growing discontent between what I call the moderate mainstream in the United Kingdom and people who might well or might not have a good reason to come to this country, but seem to be treated better. Tristan, all I can say to you is this, my friend. Don't ever change the way you feel and the way that you approach things. But if I could lie to you and say, oh, I can sort it. I can't sort out the Department of Pension. I think they're a complete joke. What you have to do is stay in their face, though, mate. We appreciate your call. Let's go to London quickly. Pat, you're on Talk Drive. 2 minutes. What you got?
Yeah, well, the fact is that the Conservatives, which I vote for, ain't no good. They weren't very good, this Conservative lot, but they weren't dangerous. This lot, what the people who voted Reform and people never voted at all have put in, are dangerous and they're no good. So the fact is, we're all eating dirt. We're all eating dirt because of people who voted reform and didn't vote at all.
That's a ridiculous comment.
No, it ain't a ridiculous comment.
Of course it's a ridiculous comment. Voting reform didn't actually... 4 million people voted for reform because reform was talking...
I'll tell you what...
Hold on a minute. Listen, that theory was given out by the Tories because they were running scared. The fact of the matter is millions, hundreds of thousands of people voted for reform that were Labour voters, and more so now will. The truth of the matter is the Tory party messed up to the point where the British public had stopped listening. And I reckon, and I'm just being honest with you, Pat, I completely agree. I think it's dangerous socialist ideology. But let me tell you this. The Tories got it sadly wrong, and it's the Tories who are responsible for the position that we are in, and reform, in my genuinely honest opinion, are the only answer. Let's go to Chris very quickly in Epsom. 1 minute, Chris. What you got?
Oh, God, I ain't going to get it all out in 1 minute. Islamophobia doesn't exist. I've got a Muslim girlfriend. We've been together 7 years. Islamophobia doesn't exist. It's not a thing. They are just doing that to pad their votes. The ridiculous thing is that if you look into history, if you watch David Starkey or Douglas Murray, you will understand that Islam is a conquering religion. Every country they've gone to, as they've crept out of the Middle East, has changed and become a Muslim country. And that's what this Labour government are going to do to us with their stupidity and their ignorance.
Very interesting opinion. Thank you, Chris in Epsom. 0344 419 1000. For some reason, if you eat a cinnamon roll in the middle of a radio programme, you dribble for the rest of the day. It might be that I'm 60. Keep calling. We'd like to get you on. We've got sport on the way. This is Talk Drive.
They've got a lot more power to take on Donald Trump. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I don't think China are going to back down. That's the one thing that you know from them, is that they are pretty sure with all of the minerals, as you've said, which make all of the chips and solar technology
and mobile phones.
Yeah, so
none of the stuff we use.
No, everything we take for granted they've got. And so they'll just sit there and go, OK, fine, we're going to impose these rules on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 6. Push the button, Ames.
Sport Summary on Talk.
So what happens is Sam Ellard, who's here, did his first ever TV programme last night and is so now up his backside, got a new agent, he hasn't turned up, which is great because we've got a far better person on. Anil Gandola, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well. I'm relieved that the transfer window is closed. It's been very busy, but it was... Look, we'd rather be busy than not busy because we wouldn't have much to talk about today, would we?
So let's start without the transfer window, with last night's Premier League match. And I have to say, my entire family, my wife, and she's indoctrinated my son Henry, they're all Chelsea fans. I thought West Ham, and I'm not just saying this, look, a completely different proposition under Graham Potter, and Rye just said he's had 3 weeks, we're not going to be relegated. I reckon at the beginning of the next season, West Ham, the whole effort looked different, and Chelsea looked rubbish in the first half. And I do think that 1 or 2 of the goals were a bit fortuitous, but I'm just...
No, I tend to agree with you. I haven't got a dog in this fight particularly, but yeah, I agree that the performance from West Ham was miles ahead of what we've been seeing before Graham Potter came in. And of course, Graham Potter was linked with several clubs, probably more than several, during his time off and away from football. But it seems as if he's took the job that's perfect for him. A big club, a club with ambition, and a club with plenty of fans who were a little bit disappointed with the football that they've saw and
there wasn't a boo in the stadium last night. Do you know that? Not a boo, as they can see.
And I'm not surprised. So yeah, as you said, unfortunate, of course, going 1-0 ahead with Jarrod Bowen, who has just been inevitable for West Ham, hasn't he, over the last couple of years. But 2 goals in 10 minutes meant that Chelsea climbed back up into the top 4. But yeah, for sure, there's a lot of positives going forward for West Ham.
Transfer window closed. Evan Ferguson, by the way, Ewan Ferguson, by the way, not Evan, coming from Brighton to West Ham. He was a big player a year ago. Matthias Tell from Bayern to Spurs for 50 million. Really scattergun approach?
Well, yeah, you say from Bayern to Tottenham. It was actually from Bayern to Tottenham, to maybe to Manchester United, and then a massive U-turn, and he decided he does want to go to Tottenham. This, I think, by far was the most bonkers saga of the whole of the window. A very prominent 19-year-old, still a lot to go in terms of reaching his full potential, but Spurs seemingly have got their man. Before that, they bid, I think it was 50 million for him. That was rejected. Apparently he didn't want it, and as deadline day always proves to be, always crazy, you never know what's on the horizon, and he's a Tottenham player.
Yesterday Sam said that he felt that Levy was playing games. He bid for Mark Gay, didn't he? Mark Gay, the Crystal Palace centre-back, the captain, for 70 million. He felt that Levy was just trying to placate the supporters. They got their Kevin Danso, they've got Matthias Tay, but to me, scattergun, no approach. But if we're talking about scattergun, your team, right?
I was hoping you'd let me off today, Jeremy.
He plays Manu the other day, right? Kobe Manu as a number 10, number 9, which says to £100 million worth of Højlund and the other one, Xerxes, you're rubbish.
Yeah.
You don't buy a centre forward. I'm not against Ruben Amorim, but he's got a hard few months ahead, hasn't he? If he stays at this rate, I don't understand.
I think hard is probably the understatement of the show today, Jeremy. It's quite astonishing, really, the situation they're in. It's shades of when Jose Mourinho was at Manchester United. He wanted a centre-half at the time, and he actually put Scott McTominay, who is by trade a midfielder, in the defence to make it really clear.
Who let Scott McTominay go, by the way?
Exactly. Well, he seems to be flying. He's at a club with, of course, Napoli and Serie A, who are first. So he seems to be enjoying life away from Manchester United.
And slagging off Jose Mourinho, by the way, Manchester United fans. You were second, despite not having a centre-back.
Exactly. Be careful what you wish for. But yeah, in terms of Kobe Manu playing up front, I think that highlights exactly what it is. And you look at that situation, Xerxes and Højlund clearly surplus to requirements. That's 50% of all of the attackers at Manchester United at the moment. So if Manchester United fans thought it was a difficult start to life under Ruben Amorim, I'd suggest they put their seatbelt on and get ready for an even more
difficult ride. Do you think this man, finally, somebody will be given the time at Manchester United to clear out the Ericssons? And I mean, all these people have had it, right?
Yeah.
But football fans and boards naturally want success, and nobody seems to get the time at that big club. Gary Neville was saying today he really is concerned that they're never going to get back to where they are because they'll never give themselves a year to swallow all the rubbish and deal with what they've got to do.
Well, this is it, isn't it? Short-termism at its finest in football, and it's never been so apparent as it is in today's game. You look at every situation, really, you know, a manager on average, last 2 seasons? I think if they get to the 3rd season, they've done half a decent job.
Yeah.
So Ruben Amorim, look, I think he's a great manager, but when you have statistics...
Is he, though? Is he 39? Did he know what he was getting into?
Exactly, maybe a bit of naivety.
But maybe you think, right, so I'm going to tell you my manager of the month by a mile is David Moyes. And as a West Ham fan, I was the one saying, you lot are barking mad. You can go on at me, oh, we want expansive football. 6th, 7th, 6th and a European trophy. Don't care what anybody says to me, right? What a job he's done at Everton. And that, you know, you sort of almost think he was completely floundering at Manchester United, but you almost think Moyes at 60 could have gone into Manchester United and had a bit of a result. Do you know what experience?
Sure. I think the one statistic to summarise all of this in terms of the difficulty Ruben Amorim has found, he's been in the job 3 months now, Jeremy. He took over when they were 13th. Do you know where they are in the Premier League at the moment?
16th, 15th.
13th still.
Oh, still 13th.
So yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
But you look at it and you think, right, clearly only a few points off, quite a high position in the league in terms of where he took over at, still 13th, still struggling, and it almost looks like there's no light at the end of the tunnel at the moment.
And if Everton, I don't want to upset anybody, but Everton win their game in hand, both Tottenham and West Ham and Man United will go down a further place. Do you know anything about Watford? Ryan, who produces this show, is a Watford fan. Watford, though, signed a left-back on loan from Chelsea, Caleb Wiley, who's injured. So that just about sums up what... Any thoughts on Watford?
Yeah, it's always been a situation with Watford that it never almost seems that long-term plan is in there, like we were just saying there.
Tom Cleverley's lasted 8 matches. That's a long-term thing at Watford,
for Watford, that's what they call it, a testimonial, isn't it, in terms of Watford.
He's looking really angry.
I better get off before he never invites me back.
So, here's the thing for you. Premier League, right?
Yeah.
180 million from Man City. Do Man City qualify for the Champions League, yes or no?
Well, they don't have any excuse after that, Jeremy. 180 million. They're just below the top 4, but I think given the way they've started this season, they have to. It's not a yes or no, they have to.
It's really interesting. Chelsea, I was at St James's Park on Saturday when the Toon lost to Fulham. You've got Man City, you've got Newcastle, you've got Chelsea all vying. You'd think the top 3 will probably be Liverpool and I'm going to forget, help me out here.
Arsenal.
That's the one.
Yeah,
who's third? Nottingham Forest. How well are Nottingham Forest doing?
Well, they're the great feel-good story, especially for Man United fans like myself. We don't want any of the big ones to go and win it. So come on, Forest, make everyone happy and make a brilliant
Do Liverpool win the Premier League?
Oh, why did you have to
Come
ask me this,
on,
Jeremy?
man.
Yes,
As a Man United fan,
yes. They will win the league, unfortunately.
Do you know how difficult that is for Anil to say? Anil, thank you so much indeed. He's back on TalkSport very soon, and we're back after the news at 6. What do you want to talk about? Anything goes. 0344 419 1000. Text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. We're approaching 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK, and the news is next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
My friends, into the third and final hour of Drive for Tuesday. I've just had the wife on the phone. Iris, 1, has started to crawl and almost walk. She's just caught her in the drinks cupboard with a miniature bottle of gin. It don't start writing stories. The top's on, but there's a picture of her with a bottle of gin in her right hand, aged 1. What a great father I am. 0344 499 1000. Brad, I agree with your earlier caller. Which one? If I were young enough to leave, I would. Well, he doesn't sound like that. I just thought I'd do it. I hate this country now. My grandfather, father and uncle fought for this country. I can't have it. Hello to Anne in Wales, who knows a thing or two about the left wing. The Labour Party have been ruling there for ages. Starmer is now getting scary. He seems determined to destroy the relationship with our closest ally and, let's face it, defender, whilst also being determined to damage our security by paying to give away the Chagos Islands. He hates the elderly, he detests business, farmers, fishermen, our heritage, and opens the door to anyone. He is a hypocrite and an extremely left-wing... how many? 1, 2, asterisks. I think I can work out the word. Hello to Derek. I love the programme. I think Keir should do a walkabout amongst the people so we can show our appreciation and love and see how fast he can run. Chris Gillard, I'm absolutely disgusted the amount of money spent occupying the illegal migrants. Occupying? At the time when pensioners are cold and hungry, children are cold and hungry, people have to use food banks. Then our leader spending all that money on a voice coach to teach him how to speak through his bleeding nose and give away the Chagos Islands. And this, just for the people who think that I'm being unfair today about £141 million of your taxpayers' money spent on migrants going to football matches, this is anonymous, but to me sums up my issue. Jez, I couldn't afford a second-hand console for my daughter this Christmas. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, if you bought a dink... Oh, don't get me started. Let's go to Derbyshire. Peter, you're on Talk Drive. A very good evening. How are you, my friend?
All right, my friend. It's a long while since I spoke to you. We normally call you Jesser, is that right?
I don't know. What did you say? I couldn't understand a word of that.
Jesser or Jezzy.
You can call me whatever you want. Tosser, usually. What do you want to say?
Well, I don't go too far. Right, we're talking about the illegal migrants.
Yep.
Which is ridiculous, to be quite honest with you. Absolutely ridiculous. Keir Starmer absolutely adores them all coming over. It gives him brownie points, if you like, and everything else like that. And the actual amount of money is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. First of all, I've just retired over the last year. Mm-hmm. I've worked 45 years of my life at work, been 45 years at work, only to find out that Keir Starmer gets into power and everybody loses your benefits, sort of like winter fuel costs and stuff like that, which is ridiculous.
No, mate, I couldn't agree more. And the point on a serious note that I've been making for weeks, but I made again today, is that I actually genuinely, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I wouldn't have had about as much knowledge or that much of a concern about it because this country was doing okay. But this country is skint. And if you continually send a message to people who are not, by the way, racists or fascists or homophobic, whatever else words Ryan's going to throw me here in the next few minutes, if you say to the moderate mainstream, thanks for working, thanks for paying tax, thanks for not breaking the law, thanks for looking after your kids, and thanks for everything. And by the way, you can sod off and stand at the back of the queue because there's these poor people who have come from France and we need to put them in a hotel and we need to give them some tickets to football and teach them how to drive. And are they surprised, Pete, seriously, when people go, I'm not doing this anymore. It's not acceptable. It's not fair. It's not right.
Am I right to say in saying that they also got £3,000 for buy a mobile phone and buy some clothes and stuff like that? I mean, it's ridiculous.
I don't know that. I've heard that. My good friend in Newcastle, Rob Armstrong, will say that's true in cash, but we'll see. Pete in Derbyshire, thank you so much indeed. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87366. Dribbling again. But honestly, never eat a cinnamon bun in the middle of a radio programme. Right, my next guest, I love this man, migration expert, former MEP, the legend that is Stephen Wolfe. Good evening, Stephen.
Good evening, Jeremy. I hope you're well.
Sorry, Stephen, hold on a second. My producer's now having a go at me in my ear. What have I got wrong? What did I get wrong? I got the text number wrong, and you're going to sit there and judge me, yeah? Look at the trousers you've got on today. They don't go with your shoes. I'm only joking. Ryan, you're very true. We love Ryan. He's telling me off. How are you, Steve?
I'm great, Jeremy. Are you well?
Yeah, I'm all right. But I was thinking, Ryan and I were having this discussion earlier. So if you really, really want to stop migration to this country that's running amok and screwing up, you know, public services that are already in dire straits, what a really, really good idea it is to offer incentives just for anybody just arriving home or just tuning in the radio. Let me just say this slowly, because this is the story, Stephen, that just encapsulates why there is so much anger in my mind. Asylum seekers and refugees since 2022 have been given tax-funded playstations, DJ lessons, instruction in circus skills, Pilates and yoga lessons, driving lessons and ticket to Premiership football matches to allow them to settle into life culturally in England. This has cost the British taxpayer £141 million and might explain, Stephen Wolfe, why so many councils have raised council tax and 9 in this country have gone skint. And you begin... The response to this today, Steve, has been unbelievable. There is real anger.
Well, there should be real anger, Jeremy, to be honest, and I think we should be marching and screaming like the French would do if in the streets if we really had it in us, because we've taken this on the chin for so long. You talk about this sum of money, but actually it's hugely more. It's probably in the billions, and I'll explain why, if I can, very briefly. As the government determines that more and more people who come over here claim asylum are deemed to allowed to stay here, given the right to remain, it no longer becomes a problem of the Home Office to house them. It simply says it's yours, the council. Now, if you add in the fact that since the year 2000, we've had 1.2 million applicants for asylum, of which around 700,000 of them have been allowed to stay. And we also know that 80% of all rented accommodation now is by those who are non-UK citizens. Wow. That sum of money that we're paying is going to be in the billions every year about housing them alone in councils. So this 100 odd million is small beer compared to what we're really paying out of our council taxes to house those who've come over here as asylum seekers, and then we've granted them the right to remain.
There's many people that will take exception to the tone of this station and me and other shows that they say that we're being unfair. And let's look at the other side, that you know, there are people escaping war-torn countries. Well, my argument has always been, Stephen, that if I was escaping a war-torn country, I would bring my wife and child with me, and the first country I got to that wasn't at war, I'd go, phew, I'm safe. That's my argument. And I know in the past it's been important for Britain to lead the way, but I do make the point that we are skint, and we are at a point, I think, where, as I said, mainstream moderate people feel that they're on the back foot. I want to play you a call. I want to play this for the viewers and the listeners as well. This was a call from a lady earlier in the show called Justine. Let me just explain before we push the button. This is a lady who, for me, completely encapsulates why there is growing anger. Push the button, Ames.
I'm really furious. My daughter was diagnosed with leukemia at the end of 23. I had to shut down my business and claim benefits. It was degrading. And then we had to claim disability living allowance for her, which then took 14 weeks to come through. And children who have cancer get to make a wish. And I had an email from the Dream Factory where my daughter has just placed her wish, crying out for funds, and have got a GoFundMe page because they don't get government help.
You understand what I mean, Steve? Our priorities are wrong, and people... I'm not talking about an uprising. I'm saying people have had enough. They're back to the back teeth. There's somebody that the systems in this country should help.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, and I'm part of a small group of people that we call ourselves the Costa Club, Jeremy, and within that group of people are those who have children with mental health issues, ADHD, and a couple who've got dementia. And within the stories we hear, just in that local community, is how many of them struggle to get doctor's appointments, are not getting the funding to help their children being able to be educated properly. They're being forced to stay at home lots of times because there isn't the supervision at the schools that are capable of looking after their children when they go awry. And that's happening not just in my little community. It's not just the person who's speaking. It's all over this country. Now, I do hear, and I mean, I was on with our favourite Jasmine Alibaba Brown on Saturday on the BBC, who was saying, oh, if you didn't have immigrants coming in, we wouldn't have them in our hospitals. You wouldn't have the nurses and the doctors. How would you be treated? And to an extent, I understand that.
I do to an extent, but that's not an argument. How can a woman like that say that all the illegal migrants who drop their passports in the sea and disappear into our society, they're not bloody doctors, they're criminals, Stephen?
Absolutely. And when they see those people coming here, housed, fed, watered, but no, it goes beyond that. Giving them a game to Manchester United. I haven't been able to see Manchester United in years, and yet I hear that they're going. They're getting PlayStations. People are genuinely angry. And what's even more frustrating, and I think really is bringing the bile up for most people, is when they look at this Labour government and the Conservatives before that, who don't really seem to understand what's happening to ordinary people and why they feel so angry about this. Fairness has gone from our country. Who queued up and worked hard and paid in the taxes has gone from this country. It's he who comes over here, you grab it as much as you can, you take from everybody in this country, and those who are less well off are left behind.
And I think I was having an argument with somebody yesterday, and they were saying the problem is just you sound too. It's too harsh. You know, Great Britain has always been a country. This is for me. Yeah, I know you're smiling. If you're not watching, no. Stephen and I were exactly the same. But I'm trying to play the game here. And they said the problem is, Jez, you don't understand. We've always been the leaders in being decent and humble and correct. And my answer is really simple. Yeah. And look what it did to us. Because right now, I'm afraid I would be fine if we weren't skint. I wouldn't have such an issue with it. What I have an issue is that those very people, be it Justine and her daughter, be it the lady who just said to me, I couldn't afford a second-hand console for my kid and I worked all my life at Christmas.
That's right.
They are going to... They're not racist. They're not racist. Say what you want, lefties, but they're not. They're hard-working, decent people saying, do you know what? I feel like, and I keep saying it, I'm at the back of the queue, and I think therein lies the truth. And when you look, and I know a lot of people, oh, Donald Trump, you look across the pond and you go, here's the man who says, I'm going to make you better off, safer, I'm going to put you first, I'm going to make my country proud of me again. You go, Jesus, that would be nice over here. I'd help anybody, but there's a queue, and I don't think people... But you know what the argument is, Stephen? Maybe you can help me. They'll say to me, yeah, but you don't know what it's like to live in a war-torn country. That's what they say to me. But that just doesn't justify thousands of men who drop their phones in the sea and come over here and take advantage, does it?
Yeah, but I would say back to them, Jeremy, that most of those people who are saying those comments don't understand what it's like to live in a bedsit with your child.
Yeah.
They don't know what it's like to actually put blankets over you and freeze to death because you're no longer getting your fuel allowance from this country. I don't know what it's like to go to the food banks or indeed have that lady who called in, watch her child suffer and struggle in a hospital because there isn't enough funds. And the reason there's not enough funds is because we are skint. We haven't got the money. We have been spending it across the globe and to others and to filling the kind of pockets of people coming here from abroad who are dropping their passports. Now, I do understand, and I've got a heart just as you have. I understand how terrible it is to live in those horrid countries with dictators and not being able to live as freely as I do. But that doesn't give you the right to come over here just because it's economically difficult.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, that's the point. And I think there's a difference. And then you get on to this bigger argument about, we've done our bit, but we seem to have a system that not only favours illegal migrants, but also seems the ideology of this country's changed, which that fits in perfectly to, which is we don't deal with crime. We seem to harass the victim and placate the perpetrator. We seem to put people in prison for hurty words and not worry about kids being raped by grooming gangs. It's almost as if our entire set of priorities has changed, and with that has been this influx. I mean, look, I've never put this to you. I'll put it to you. I said it to somebody last week, and they went, that could be genius, it could be mad. I've never understood why, as a taxpayer, we're paying for people to be on the dole wait a second, they're not all disabled and mentally ill. People will tell me they are, but they're not. There must be hundreds of thousands who aren't, who are stuck in that cycle of either sorry or either lazy or have got used to it. I'd stop migration, and all the people that I get told are hospital porters and waiters and all that sort of thing, I would make the people who are long-term unemployed, who need to get a kick up the backside and go out to work, to do something, to give something back to society, get something on their CV, give them some motivation. I'd certainly do that. And I don't agree with these people who say you wouldn't have a doctor if you didn't have illegal migration. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Of course that's ridiculous. The ridiculous argument is that we wouldn't have nurses, but there is a different way of managing it. One of the proposals I placed in my paper years ago, the fair, flexible, forward-thinking immigration policy, was based on allowing nurses and those in care homes to come over here on short-term contracts. But at the same time, we've got them in short-term contracts. We're increasing the wages and the training and reducing the taxation on care home facilities so that those people who are born in this country get trained, have better wages and have better facilities, whilst we're reducing the numbers coming from abroad. That seems a sensible policy. Yeah. Instead, what we're doing is going across the world, taking people who have skills in those countries, and don't those countries need it as well, Jeremy? Don't they need care home workers and doctors? And increasing their wages by coming here, but we're making it more difficult in those countries. And what happens then? They see their countries declining, so they go, oh, let's go and join them in Britain. It's a vicious circle when we do that. And what we should be doing is enabling those countries to grow through better economics, reduction in costs of trade, etc. like that. And that's the way to improve their countries, and at the same time training and increasing wages for our people here.
Where does it end, Stephen? Seriously, where does it end? We have a government that is probably more unpopular, I think, in my lifetime than any. Today, we can report that the YouGov poll yesterday put Nigel Farage's Reform Party a percentage point in front. For me, you're a former MEP. I believe that reform will not just dissipate like the SDP. I believe that we now have 3 political parties in this country. I don't believe that reform's going anywhere. I think the Conservatives have a massive fight on their hand to ever get back to being second, because I do believe that that silent majority, who are no longer prepared to be called racist or be called anything, are saying, no, in a perfect... And I'm still, to this day, I was saying this to the guys the other day, I remember more than anything else this call I took from a nurse in Gwent. It was around the times of the riots last summer. And she said to me, I've just listened to our Prime Minister call anybody that took to the streets or disagreed as far right. I've been a nurse who's worked in the NHS for 24 years, and I'm telling you what immigration has done to that initially, but the problems that it's doing. I've got a father in care, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and there's things I hate. But if I decide to speak out or take to the streets, I'm apparently a far-right thug. I'm not, Jez. I'm a taxpayer who has a right to an opinion. And that lady is exactly the voter that I believe will propel, whether it's Nigel Farage or somebody else, a different government in next time. I really believe it. I really do.
And I do too, because I see it here. I live in Winchester. That's got a combination of seriously wealthy people who tend to say, oh, we're not Labour. We can't do that, but we'll vote Liberal Democrat because we're comfortable, we're safe, we're okay. But we're good people. We need to help out those immigrants. But in the same side, there's parts of the constituency, and you move to Eastleigh and Southampton, where there are deep depths of poverty and lower incomes, and they're struggling on that side. And what you see is them going, I did vote the Conservatives, I did vote Labour, and I'm going to vote for reform. There are those who say, I love Nigel Farage, and there are those who are saying, I don't really like him, but I'm still going to vote for that party because I've had enough. I've just had enough. And I think as Nigel starts to broaden the numbers of people in his party, broadens those who speak for him across, and there's some very good MPs working for them at the moment, as he does that, I think it's going to entice more and more people. And Jeremy, I would say let's look at Wales. The local elections first, but I think Wales will be a significant chance for victory for reform because they've got proportional representation.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, it is always a pleasure and never a chore. Lovely to have you on. The legend that is Stephen Wolfe, live and exclusive on Talk. What is it, 6:21 on the day, my friends, that we've discovered that 140... Ryan, close your button off, mate. On the day we find out, my friends, that councils across this country have given £141 million to asylum seekers to make sure they can get a PlayStation, they can go to football matches and learn Pilates. There's only one man's opinion that we want on this lot, the man that launched this station, the man who makes this station what it is, and the man will be back at 6 a.m. I'm dragging Mike Graham in next.
But they don't do anything. They don't create any energy. They don't sell any energy. They don't wholesale it. They don't buy it.
The few things that have been said about Great British Energy are that it will invest in community energy schemes, and that all the investments it makes should generate positive returns for taxpayers, which is a kind of a weird thing to say, because if these investments generate positive returns, then why do they need public money? They could raise their own money privately. So it's really very unclear what this is for.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:25, we're live across the UK on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. If you want to be part of this vain attempt at a radio programme ahead of Kevin O'Sullivan's political asylum, by the way, if you do join his asylum, you'll get a free console and some tickets to a Fulham Premier League game. 0344 499 1000, the man that inspired a generation, and me certainly, Michael Graham is in the building.
Very good afternoon to you.
Honestly.
Oh, nice to see you.
So yesterday we had, and you and I didn't get a chance to do this because you were very busy, we had the voice coach thing.
Yes.
Can I do the serious side of that?
Yeah, very serious side of it, actually.
You got rid of Boris Johnson for saying that he had a piece of cake.
Right.
You've broken the law, and you did say in the past that if you were faced with the criminal, that you'd resign.
That you would resign.
So why haven't the bloody police gone to him and said you broke it?
Do you know what the police said this morning?
No.
We haven't investigated this because nobody's complained, right? So guess what's happened? Because people hate Keir Starmer to such an extent, loads of people have now made a complaint. So the police are now duty-bound to investigate.
They must
And what's also come out is that the woman in question, you know, the so-called voice coach...
she's called Leona Melinga. I thought she was called Linda Messenger. I got it very confused.
Well, listen, it's easy to confuse them.
Look at Ryan's face.
Leona Melinga or whatever her name is.
Is she a Malingerer?
Right? Well, she may well be.
Yeah.
But she was very happy to travel on a train, which she posted on her own Twitter account saying off she was going. She also posted, right, 6 months or so after having seen Keir Starmer on the 24th of December in person, said, isn't it great to get finally back to seeing people and coaching people in person? As if she wasn't coaching him. So my question today is, it's all very well us making fun of it, which we were quite right to do, but I'm wondering if it wasn't really actually a coaching lesson at all, and maybe it was something else. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that it was anything untoward, but it may
with masks on.
With masks on, ball gags. No, it may not be anything to do with that, but it may be that it was a party that he invited her and said, look, why don't you just come for a drink? It's Christmas Eve. Let's have some eggnog together.
I agree. Right? I made a point, and do you remember? Well, I used to argue with Julia about this. Do you remember in the run-up to the last, during the COVID debacle?
Right.
Much was made of Boris. Boris was an appalling human being, and he was always over when the Queen was sat on her own. We had somebody on today saying that they had leaflets through their door, and the 3 leaflets had a picture of the Queen, and then a picture of, you must be your own man on his own and the thing. So all of that was hypocrisy. But do you remember when Boris was done, and there was Starmer went north to Durham, and he met with Angela Rayner, and there were 35 of them in a building having beer and curry. This guy's a bleeding hypocrite.
He is a hypocrite.
He's
no
a
question.
hypocrite.
And even if he hides behind the fact that it wasn't necessarily a breach of the law, it is absolutely and utterly a breach of trust.
Of course it is.
Because what he said is not what he did. And there is absolutely no justification, I don't care what anybody says, to say that she was a key worker. She was not a key worker. I mean, this is what I said to you yesterday.
A key worker to learn him to speak like that.
Isn't it ridiculous? Of all of the people that you might think Keir Starmer would have brought in to see himself on Christmas Eve, a speech therapist.
I got into trouble for saying this yesterday. I mean, I'd have admired him if he had a hooker brought in.
Yeah,
I mean, completely honest, with a bottle of whiskey, but no, speech therapist.
But he brings a speech therapist in. However, it turns out that there's more to the story than that, because it turns out that the speech therapist was a very vocal critic of Boris Johnson. She used to tweet out all the time about how Boris Johnson had ruined the country. She used to also retweet Keir Starmer's tweets, so she and he were obviously in cahoots a lot of the time. On her website, there is a valedictorian sort of reference from Sir Keir Starmer saying, thank you so much for everything you did. I couldn't have done it without you. Now, I'm thinking, these people are very close. They're friends. Maybe they're even more than friends. I wouldn't wish to cast aspersions. Very good friends. Maybe very good friends. The husband also has apparently paid money to Keir Starmer for legal services. Now, I don't know what those legal services are, but I think we deserve to know.
Amazing.
Meanwhile, another barrister friend of mine has said that Keir Starmer actually was not registered with the Bar Association when he made those legal services available to this man. So now, what are we looking at? We're looking at a very, very complicated and rather sort of mystifying scenario.
It's what my old girl used to say. If you throw... People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, because that's the point in all of this. On a serious note, right? If you pass judgment, as he has done on everybody and everything, we're going to be a different government and we're big boys politics.
No cronyism.
No.
This woman is a crony. The husband's a crony. He's paid him money. He's paid her money. It's all very dirty and very squalid and, quite frankly, incredibly embarrassing.
I had a caller on yesterday and I made the Daily Express today about this.
Did you?
Well, she said, you're being really unfair. I've been listening to you and Mike and other people during the day, but
I heard that, yes.
You two have been really unfair. He's doing a really good job.
Yeah.
And I laughed at her.
Yes.
Quite
rightly.
How has he done a good job?
He's done a terrible job. The one thing...
Busted flush, in my mind.
I can't think of one thing that he's done that people have wanted him to do. He went to Brussels yesterday, and you were quite right yesterday. I was watching the show, loved it, every second of it. Let's cross live now to Brussels. Let's just get rid of that. I mean, literally, listen to 5 minutes of it. You can't, what's the point?
And actually, it was interesting. Yours and my friend Morgan McSweeney. Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff, who replaced Sue Gray, less than 100 days. Morgan McSweeney at the weekend described him as an HR manager and not a leader.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem. Even his own party don't think he's any good, right? Tony Blair, who laughably, and I thought hilariously, still describes Gordon Brown as a nutcase. He goes, well, at least he's not a nutcase like Gordon Brown. However, he's like, what's his face? Smith, who was the...
John Smith.
John Smith. He's like John Smith without the charisma.
Yeah.
The guy's useless.
Yeah.
He's completely useless.
I sort of... there were two things I just very quickly wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
We'll do the calm one first. YouGov poll last night coming out at 10 o'clock when we finished. Reform UK.
Yeah.
Topping an opinion poll for the first time, 25%. For me, factually this, there are now three parties in British politics. I don't believe it's a protest. I don't think, like Brexit, it's for an initiative. I think, without making it sound wrong, Mikey, that there is the mainstream, the moderate mainstream have had enough, and they are latching onto reform's language.
Absolutely right. And people are making the mistake that all the reform voters have come from the Tory party. They haven't.
Nope.
Many of them have come from Labour. I heard you saying this as well. You've got friends up in the northeast of England who
they
are
were
all
working
reform.
men. They would go.
I've got
Labour
kids who are friends of my son, all 18 years of age. Some of whom voted in the last election. Some of whom weren't old enough yet. They're all reform. I ran into Richard Tyson lobbying the building this morning, and he said, he was up in York at the weekend. There's a reform society at York University for the students. That's going to start spreading. The fact that is... Can you imagine, like 2 years ago, that wouldn't have been allowed.
I was in Newcastle.
Now kids want reform.
I was in Newcastle at the weekend and they were doing a rally in Sunderland, 25,000 people. At Henry's school, if you ask the majority of the kids, they want to meet Nigel Farage. That's a fact. But the thing that's really got them going this afternoon, and you were out for lunch, so I couldn't ring you.
Yes.
9 councils, local councils in this country have gone bust. 7 are going to increase council tax. And we found out today that many councils, tax-funded, by the way, taxpayer-funded, have spent £141 million in the last 2 years making sure that we welcome migrants to this country and make them feel calm. We put them in a hotel, we get them a doctor, and then we give them, amongst other things, Mikey, we give them DJing lessons, we give them consoles, we give them driving lessons, yoga lessons, Pilates lessons, and we send them to Premier League football matches. And at the risk of people going, you two moan the whole time, what does that say to average people who can't get jacked?
Who can't afford to go on holiday anymore?
No.
I mean, I get people, as you do, I'm sure, every day saying, listen, the way that this government is now charging us, is taxing us, the council tax is going up. Think about the average salary in this country, right? You and I are fortunate enough to do a bit better than that and to be relatively well off. But there are people in this country who make a good living from working very hard, and if they make 40,000 quid, they should be all
jams.
Right. They should be
you
all
and I
right.
had this discussion.
But they're not all right.
I call them jams, just about managing.
They can't afford to buy tickets to Taylor Swift or to go to Manchester United.
No, but guess
what? They can't afford to.
Guess what? They pay all their tax, they never break the law, they've never had a handout, they've never been trouble to anybody. And those are the people that Nigel Farage and Richard Tyson have gone, do you know what? That's an unheard majority of people saying, we ain't racist, but we're not standing at the back of the queue anymore.
Why should you? Why on earth should this country be more welcoming and more kind of generous to the people who come here illegally, who may have come for all sorts of reasons? They may want to commit criminal acts, they may want to commit terrorist acts. Who knows what damage they've suffered.
Especially when we're skint.
But we're skint, and we're asking everybody who's got a job to pay more into the national exchequer in order to continually fund this ridiculous government's borrowing requirement. Sorry, I nearly swore there because it's very hard not to.
Well, it is incredibly hard not to. And then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
A very nice man came on today from the... I have to... Don't hit me over the head, I've forgotten it, so Ryan's given me that look.
Yeah.
David Spencer came on from the Policy Exchange. Great work.
Yeah.
But he looked a little bit shocked to discover that... when they committed this policy, have you not heard about this?
This is the thing that people want the police to behave in a more...
I think he thought I was being a bit sarcastic. I went, really? So you've spent all that time doing that and we've discovered that the British people want the police to deal with crime?
Yes.
Is this a shock to... Sorry, am I living in another...
This is now news, in the same way that it's now news to be able to report that, in some way, shape or form, the government has actually done something that the people wanted. They never do. They don't. There is not one thing that this government has done that anybody wants them to do.
I don't know whether it's arrogance, incompetence, but I can absolutely tell everybody that listens to this station and watches this station, something's happening, Mikey. Something is definitely happening in this country.
You can feel it. You can feel it. And also, I was in Mayfair today, right? And I know a lot of people can't afford to go there.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I don't go there very often.
You went to steal a car, didn't you?
I tell you what, you see the cars there. I was struck by, for the first time, I walked around the streets of London, Savile Row, Berkeley Street, Berkeley Square, and you know what? I didn't feel at risk.
Did you not?
For the first time. because normally when I walk around London, I'm always watching. You can see where there's motorcycle gangs going to steal your phone.
Are you saying it's different in that area?
Yeah, it's a two-tier city now.
Right.
Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan have created a two-tier city. It's full of Russians, it's full of Chinese, it's full of Arabs, it's full of people, you know, who have got massive amounts of money. Every single shop, every single restaurant has got, you know, bouncers outside.
Yeah, that's true.
But the streets are safe. And you feel good walking around.
And then the rest of the streets, 90% of people are being pickpocketed.
But good luck getting a meal for under 150 quid a head, you know, because you can't. And that's where we are now. It's like Dubai, except it's not safe.
I think it'll be really, really, really interesting to see what happens, but we will continue on this station always to speak the truth. Very quickly, speak the truth.
The foundations.
So you haven't got that call from yesterday, have you? No, you were not that switched on. So what's coming up on the breakfast show, Mike?
Today, we focused ourselves on GB Energy, right? There's a bloke called Jürgen Meyer. Who's
Who is Jürgen Meyer?
Jürgen is in charge of GB Energy. But
is he?
But he has no office. He has no employees. He has no remit. He was asked, when will the £300 kick in, you know, that we're all going to save?
Doesn't know.
He says, there's not in our remit to talk about that. And what about the job situation? How many jobs? 1,000 jobs? 200 jobs in 5 years, maybe in 20 years.
Where is Jürgen? Where is he?
Has got a very odd haircut. Looks a bit like Dale Vince.
Did you have him on?
Yeah. No. He was interviewed by Sky News, right? And so we picked that up and we just, you know, played the crap out of it. Jürgen looks like a man who has fallen into they used to say in Scotland, fallen into a river and come out with his pockets full of fish. That's how lucky he is. He's getting paid 6 figures, right?
Right.
He doesn't have there is no organisation. There's no website.
No.
They have no employees.
No.
They don't buy anything.
No.
They don't sell anything. They're not really the middleman for anything. They're not going to produce any energy.
So what is Great British Energy?
I think it's literally a fart in a box. That's what it is.
You
open the box
am in charge
and there's
of a
Jürgen's face going, hello, I am Jürgen. And, you know, there's nobody else running. What's going on? This was one of the main planks of GB.
Planks.
One of the main planks, and we're going to film that soon.
Yeah, tomorrow.
One of the main planks of Labour policy was to secure energy for this country and create this organisation called GB Energy. It doesn't exist.
And GB Energy, just so you know, is basically a land grab to basically increase your electricity prices threefold, ladies and gentlemen.
It's like, you know, when you used to get lucky bags?
Yes.
You open a lucky bag, there's GB Energy lucky bag, and then if you let the air out, it just disappears. There's nothing
GB
there.
Energy is a balloon with no air in it. Michael, we love you. Morning Glory in the morning, 6 o'clock, and then we're going to film Play.
I've no idea.
But it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
We've got to play it on the hoof. He's a legend. He's back tomorrow at 6 o'clock. It's his Talk Drive. 20 minutes to go. I'll see you in 3. I'm off for a wee. Cheers.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Get over Jurgen. Jurgen is in charge of Great British Energy. I can't do the accent I might, but Jurgen, who was interviewed by Sky News today, has no office, no job title, no salary, no employees, no remit, and doesn't know what he's doing. But Jurgen, on six figures, heads up Labour's Great British Energy. Brilliant. Hello to Nicola in Norfolk. Listening to you and Mike, my two favourite presenters, nailing what is wrong with that idiot Starmer and his hypocrisy, speaking sense and reflecting the views of many decent, ordinary people. Thank you. Lee in Bristol. Mike the Grafter Graham. I'm glad you said grafter, not grifter. Liam, he is. 141 million quid spent on PlayStations for migrants, and I'm sitting here with absolutely bugger all after becoming too sick to continue doing my job. I'm not supposed to be living a life of luxury, but after serving in the military and going to war in Iraq and Afghanistan with some peacekeeping thrown in along the way, surely I deserve at least a life, and frankly I haven't got one. My priority, the priority is not with me. Liam, you are exactly why I do this show every day, and Mike and Kev and Julia and Ian, because people like you who have given for your country are being screwed by a system that thinks other people who have done nothing are more important. I don't and never will. Jez, my husband is 92 in April. He's in a care home as he cannot walk. He did national service, has never claimed any benefits. He's been told he's not eligible for an NHS dentist, and I said he should buy a boat instead. I don't blame you. Terry's in Slough. Jez, politicians, both Labour and Tories, in my opinion, care more about the welfare of asylum seekers and illegal migrants than they do about the British people. Only reform will put us back to where we need to be. Phil in Colchester. Jez, amazing show. We're heading for an absolute disaster. Workforce declining, migrants coming in scrounging and not paying for our country. Our pensions for our children will be non-existent. This government is a shambles and treacle. I don't know why anybody would call themselves treacle in Bridgend. No wonder they come. The pull factors are immense. Work in Britain by us, the British. We're the fools. We should come here and get something for doing. Do you know what? That's the problem, isn't it? You end up thinking, I'm an idiot for even being here. 17 minutes to 7 o'clock. Listen, we've had Michael Graham. No, we haven't. We've had Mike Graham from The Breakfast Show. Now we're going stateside. This man used to deal with me the whole time. He's moved on. I created him and he's abused me. Michael Graham, US political commentator. Hello, my friend.
It's just not fair. You have these second-rate Mike Graham on, and now I come on and make him look bad and show people the gap. And it's just, you know, I feel bad, my fellow Graham.
Can I just say, it was sad. Me who first discovered you. It was me who first put you on, and then you keep appearing on these other shows. So you look very, very well. Have you been on the Ozempic? What's going on?
No, I at first of every year, I do a little, you know, try to break the bad habits of the holiday season, because I got to tell you, when Thanksgiving over here rolls around late November all the way through the holidays, if it has sugar or crust or cream, it is in my face.
I have to tell you one thing. For the first time,
I want to actually comment on something. I'm stunned. I have to say this is important to note. You actually said something worth listening to. I was like, am I the right show? And when you said that there is this trend going on of people towards this, in your land, maybe the Reform Party, you might call it, on this side, Trumpism, whatever, but towards this willing to say, you know what, I never thought I would say, let's throw out all the illegal immigrants. That's one thing people forget. While conservatives, people like Inside Sources, myself, you know, we've been enforced the law for a long time. Polls have always showed Americans are very divided on it. Those days are gone. People have had the sentiment you're just describing. There's a real shift from people who in the States would have been traditional blue-collar Democrats. They would have traced their family back to their parents or grandparents voting for FDR, and now they are with Trump. It was fascinating. This week, CBS News did one of those classic stories where they found an illegal immigrant and she had a family issue, whatever, and she's literally on the camera crying, and you know, you feel bad that people have bad lives. But the response in the in the comments and social media, whatever, was, "I'm sorry you have a bad life. Sorry, you broke the rules. We're done." Your tears are not going to change our policy. We had a record number of people cross the border under Biden. We set a new record. We now have a higher foreign-born population in the U.S. than we did back during the peak from 1890 to 1920, when Ellis Island was just pouring people in, and we were a small country. Now we're a big country, and we still have so many people here, many of them illegally, that we've crossed that line from the era of mass migration. And the average American said, forget about it.
I completely agree, Mikey. And the thing is that's really interesting is just to explain. So we were on air when Trump's inauguration speech, and I made the point, and I'll continue to make the point, that love him or loathe him, and we've had many conversations. What this man did was he stood up, and how we would crave that in this country, and said, this is what I'm going to do if you elect me. And he got elected. Whether they like it or they don't, the drips, the fact is he won the popular vote, he won everything. And almost before he gets to the White House, he starts doing it. I woke up on the Saturday morning, having done the show, and I saw that image. You must have seen it in the States, where the back of the cargo plane was open. I know it wasn't allowed to go to Colombia, well, for half an hour. And there are... And these are not illegal migrants, these are criminals, drug cartel workers, in chains, bound together, walking into the plane, right? And the people over here, the lefties, go, oh my God, this is shocking. And then there's a woman, this is brilliant, on the Mexico border, in tears, going, I don't think we should bother going back to the United States because we'll get thrown out. Yes! Yes! And I had more response on this station going, Jez, if only, whether we agreed or we didn't agree, if you had a politician who said what he was going to do and bloody well did it, that would be fantastic, Mike.
And so what you're seeing, I think, right now is the two sides of Trump. Every time he does something on immigration, he gets a surge of support. It's not bound by party affiliation. People are, first of all, Americans have a real strong sense of fair and unfair. If you stand in line and a guy cuts the line, actually, someone did a study on this a few years ago that people get more mad than if their wife cheats on them. I mean, it's like there's something in your genetic. It's just not fair. So all the unfairness is there. And then there's the helplessness. Biden's message was, can't do anything about it. We had days where we had 12,000 people a day crossing the border illegally on bogus amnesty claims, whatever, just roaming across. We're down now to a few hundred a day. You ask about why Canada was drawn into this fight over immigration. People go, "What's the big deal, Canada?" The northern border last year had more people caught crossing it illegally than the previous 13 years combined. Wow! Now it's still a small number. It's still, I think, 2,000-ish or so, whatever. But in one section, the one right above New York City, you had this massive surge. Why? Because when you start enforcing at the southern border, affluent illegal immigrants or coyotes or some combination go to Canada, which has very loose laws, and then they just come in from the Canadian border. So Trump's attitude, apparently, and he's not articulate, so I'm speculating this is his attitude, is you got to shut both borders. No messing around. Once people get the message, like that woman at the border, it's not worth it to come, then guess what you can do? Then you can have regularized immigration. People can stand in line. They can be vetted. We're still going to have about 1 million immigrants to the U.S. a year legally. That's our system. That's a lot of people. But that's through the system. It's not a fiasco like we had under Biden. And that's what's up. Now, the flip side for Trump is this thing that's going on with cutting the spending, where Elon Musk just wanders out and goes, hey, that USAID, shut it down. And people are like, can he do that? And so that's the chaos that's not as popular. But hey, if you're going to get Trump, you're going to get them both.
Very quickly, I could talk to you all day. The general
much
feeling...
better than that other Mike guy. He's a fake. He's a phony.
He goes on too long.
Anymore.
Inside sources, and you've always been great to me. Very quickly, right? Loving Trump and supporting Trump, even talking to you, is not as bad as it was in 2017. He's captured, if I could just say this, he seems to have his finger on the pulse of what the American people want, and we bloody well crave a leader like this over here, rather.
Yeah, his superpower. Well, his strength has always been he senses kind of where those center right voters are in their gut, what they want in their gut. It's, for example, one of the reasons why he's simultaneously ordering new weapons to Israel, these weapons that Biden was holding back, and he's insisting to Netanyahu, according to reports today, you've got to wrap up the war. Americans like to blow the crap out of people who need it blown out of, but they don't want long extended wars. That's how Americans, they want to go. You know what they want? Remember that Clint Eastwood movie where we invaded Grenada? And the whole movie, I think the whole war was like a weekend. That's what Americans want. There's a bad guy, we agree. We're going to risk our lives to get rid of him. We're willing to do it. We're going to spend money on the bombs. We'll do it. But we don't want to have some long, drawn-out mess. And
I love having you on. Make it more regularly. You look fantastic. You're a brilliant man. Michael Graham, the original Michael Graham, Managing Director of Inside Sources, live from America. More on Drive. 9 minutes to 6. We're out of time. Back in a minute, Mo.
They've got a lot more power to take on Donald Trump. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I don't think China are going to back down. That's the one thing that you know from them, is that they are pretty sure with all of the minerals, as you've said, which make all of the chips and solar technology
and mobile phones.
Yeah, so everything.
So none of the stuff we use.
No, everything we take for granted they've got. And so they'll just sit there and go, OK, fine, we're going to impose these rules on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
7, 5 minutes to Kev O'Sullivan to be here from 7. Petri Hoskins from 10. Let's go to the phone lines very quickly. Sue in Kent, 1 minute, go.
Hello, Jeremy. I just wanted to say that I've been trying to convince my husband to leave this country for a while. I've been sat here today crying my eyes out, and then I heard about the council tax rising in some areas by 10%. I just don't know what to do now. I feel like putting Angela and Keir and the other people in a boat and sending them somewhere. I'm absolutely disgusted with this country, and I'm ashamed to be called British anymore.
Your husband barks a bit, doesn't he? I'm joking. Mate, you got to laugh because, mate, honestly, I totally get it. It's why I sit here every day. I don't think they understand the depth of frustration, anger, disappointment, and just people have always... I think one of the greatest traits about Brits, Sue, and I mean this, is we've always sort of opened our doors and done our bit, despite what the lefties will say. I think that they're out of excuses. I think we're skint as a country. I think people are struggling. And when those people look at other people getting a handout, it makes people annoyed. There's nothing wrong with traditional values. There's nothing wrong with going back to what we should do, which is look after the elderly. We should look after our ex-servicemen and women. We should look after people who are less fortunate than ourselves, people who are mentally ill and disabled. But that doesn't mean we should present a system to other people, including people from other countries and this country, who are looking to take advantage. And as a result of taking advantage, genuine people miss out. We love you. We appreciate your call. Thank you, sweetheart. Final call of the day in Peterborough. Sharon, new caller. First, 1 minute, no longer. Sorry, Sharon, we've run out of time. What you got?
It's all right, Jeremy. I just want to say, good result. Well, we should have won last night because at the end of the day, Gerrard should have got a free kick for that foul.
Are you a West Ham fan?
Yeah, I've spoken to you before. But
there's two of us. That's two of us. That's fantastic. Right, come on, you're running out of time now. Up the hammers.
Jeremy, I want to say that you are the voice of the people and you're fantastic. And just please keep doing it because everybody, I feel, has had enough.
Well, I will keep doing it unless I get fired. But it seems to be going all right at the moment.
I'm 65 and I see the disgusting state of our country and I want to leave, but where am I going to go?
I'm going to read you all. I'm going to read you all to finish the show today, and I hope you won't mind. One of my best mates, Rob. You know me, Jez. I'm a man who's had his ups and downs and his struggles, but I became an entrepreneur, a maker of jobs, a wealth maker, paying tax. If I was a younger man, I would take my family and my ideas and leave, but I won't because I love my country and there is a change happening. And because of the almighty calamity that is taking place now, and before under the Conservatives, much of this is immigration-based. I will stay and I will fight because I believe the chaos of what Labour were doing will be so huge that reform will win at the next general election. Unfortunately, the crimes and the amounts of money it will cost us are beyond belief, but we must push ourselves, and with the help of this station and people dealing with it and reporting it daily, we will get our country back and be able to help the real asylum seekers, because those people are not freeloaders, and we will get our country back. And that's not some sort of speech. I genuinely believe that. But what you should know, Sharon, is there are millions and millions of people across the United Kingdom that feel exactly the same. So listen, darling, keep the faith. Really appreciate the call. Hello to Don in Chelmsford. Before we fund illegal migrants and overseas aid, we should have a fully funded elderly care system. We should look after ex-service people. I think those are the main issues. Couldn't agree with you more, Don. Hello to Andy in Thatcham. Jez, how do these migrants get given a mobile phone? If I want one, I need to prove my identity and where I reside and for how long, so as to get a credit check, which can be done. How can these immigrants pass those requirements if they throw their ID away in the channel? Because, Andy in Thatcham, they get treated better than us. Hello to Stuart. Jez, with Starmer's negotiating skills over the Chagos Islands, I've decided I want to buy